Okay, it's 9 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And can our clerk, Jesse Clark, please call the roll?
Thank you. Mayor Lamstead, are you present?
Yes, I am present.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
Present.
Councillor Braybrook?
Present.
Councillor Cadigan?
Present.
Councillor Franzen?
Present.
For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CAO Treasurer.
Present.
We have a lot of staff in the room, so I will just let you know who's here. We have Steve Brockbank, Director of Emergency Services. Evan Grieger, Director of Public Works. Barb Waldron, Director of Building and Planning, CBO. Chastity Robertson, Deputy Treasurer. Chelsea Carpenter, Supervisor of Waste, Public Works Coordinator. And online, we have Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation and Facilities.
Present.
Ann Ruth, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Adele Arbor, Planner.
Present.
Bianca Dragicevic, Legislative Coordinator, Executive Assistant to the CIO.
Present.
And Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services, Clerk is present.
Okay, thank you very much. We will move on to item 2, which is the disclosure of pecuniary interest. If anyone has a pecuniary interest in an item on the agenda, please disclose it now or anytime during the meeting prior to speaking on that item on the agenda. I'm seeing no hands. We can move on to 3, which is the approval of the agenda. I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong. And I see no hand, but there, okay. Councillor Franzen? All in favor? The motion to approve is carried. Okay, we can go on to item number 4, which is presentations, and we have Sarah Groves from Impact. Sarah, are you out there?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Sarah.
Hello. How is everybody?
We are good. How are you?
Good. Good. Okay, so I see the desktop is being presented. We do have a video included as well with the presentation, but we can watch that afterwards if that works. Okay, so my name is Sarah. Sorry?
Sure can. Go right ahead.
Okay. My name is Sarah Groves, and I'm an account manager with Municipal and Stakeholder Relations at MPAC, the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. Also with me today is Victoria Anderlich, and she's my account support coordinator for the area. We work together in partnership to support the municipal stakeholders within the cities of Peterborough and Kawartha Lakes and the counties of Peterborough and Haliburton. I'd like to first take a minute to congratulate you all on your recent election. I look forward to working with you, whether you're newly elected or a seasoned elected official. Please know we are here to help, and we have an entire municipal and stakeholder relations department and team who can answer any questions you may have. To start, municipal relationships are a priority to MPAC and our municipal and stakeholder relations team, and we want to continue elevating both the municipal and property owner experience. Next page, please. At MPAC, we are Ontario's property experts. Our job is to assess and classify more than 5.5 million properties across Ontario, worth a combined value of more than $3 trillion. In the past year, Ontario has grown by approximately 45,000 new residential homes. And in 2022, we added more than $37 billion to Ontario's assessment rolls. Every municipality uses our assessments to make informed decisions about their community, including the distribution of property taxes. Ontario's property tax system and these assessments generate approximately $30 billion in tax revenue annually. Next slide. There are 4 key players in Ontario's property assessment and taxation system, and all have a different role and interest in this process. The provincial government, specifically the Ministry of Finance, is responsible for setting assessment and taxation legislation, as well as policies. They also determine the education property tax rate. There is also an independent body that adjudicates appeals of MPAC's assessed values, the ARB, and this also falls under the jurisdiction of the province. MPAC is an independent, not-for-profit corporation funded by all Ontario municipalities, and our role is to accurately assess and classify all properties in Ontario. We do this in compliance with the Assessment Act and regulations set by the Government of Ontario. We are accountable to the province, municipalities, and property taxpayers of Ontario through a board of directors that is comprised of provincial, municipal, and taxpayer representatives appointed by the Minister of Finance. Municipalities then determine your budget requirements, set tax rates, and collect property taxes to pay for municipal services such as police, fire, roads, recreation, water, among others. And municipalities use MPAC's assessments and the established tax rates to distribute your tax requirement to ratepayers. And finally, the property owners pay the property tax bill and help set market value through ongoing property purchases and sales. Next slide. As you can imagine, maintaining Ontario's property database is very important. Property data is continuously updated so that municipal records are accurate when our municipal stakeholders are making important tax decisions. Maintaining Ontario's property database includes inspecting and assessing new construction, additions, and renovations promptly, responding to property owner inquiries, and working to help them understand their assessment. We also support municipalities through ongoing conversations and engagements. We offer a program called Municipal Connect, where all of our municipal stakeholders can obtain assessment-related information. And we work collaboratively on projects that are important to you, like digital building permitting. We also have statutory duties such as handling requests for reconsideration and maintaining people data by tracking school support for over 5.5 million properties. Next slide. Monitoring the market and assessing newly built and renovated properties are things we do every day to keep our property data current. We also periodically update every single property assessment in Ontario based on the same legislated valuation date, and we call this an assessment update or a reassessment. The valuation date for the most recent assessment update is January 1st, 2016. And this is when we determined what every single property in Ontario could have reasonably sold for in its current state and condition at that particular point in time. Regular revaluation of properties ensures that assessments stay up to date and similar properties of similar value in the same municipality pay similar property taxes. Provincial legislation determines when MPAC can conduct a province-wide assessment update and sets the valuation date for each update cycle. Next slide. So the reassessment that was scheduled to occur in 2020 was postponed by the province to provide stability and certainty to Ontarians and to enable municipalities to focus on responding to the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. As a result, property assessments continue to be based on a legislated valuation date of January 1st, 2016. This does not have a negative impact on municipalities as MPAC continues to maintain and update the assessment roll to reflect changes such as new construction and improvements to properties. And for new buildings or structures, MPAC determines that value as of January 1st, 2016 to ensure equity when we compare to existing properties. Next slide, please. Ontario's property tax system is based on everyone paying their portion of what it costs to deliver community services. To do this, all properties are assigned a value at a common valuation date as noted. And this is a principle called current value assessment. And this is the price a property might reasonably be expected to sell for if sold by a willing seller to a willing buyer after appropriate time and exposure on an open market. Next slide, please. So just to reiterate, while we await news from the provincial government about the next province-wide assessment update, January 1st, 2016 continues to be Ontario's legislated valuation date. As noted earlier, this is a fixed date to which all properties are valued. Although the assessment update remains paused, our work continues to keep property data up to date. Property owners will still receive an updated property assessment from MPAC if there are changes to their properties. And we just finished up the process of sending almost 800,000 property notices to property owners that reflect any changes that have occurred to their properties this year. Once the province announces when the next assessment update will take place and what the valuation date will be, we will let you know and can have those meaningful conversations as we work to finalize assessed values within your community. So next slide, please. Let's talk briefly about valuation in Ontario. So there are 3 industry-wide standardized approaches to valuing properties. The direct comparison approach is when recent sales of comparable properties are analyzed. And that's where we typically see residential properties or vacant land. We also have the income approach, which is the ability, is when there's an ability to earn revenue, and it's tied to the real estate and not the business that may be run from that location. So in other words, it's not the revenue being generated by the Walmart, rather it's the income by way of rent that the landlord can generate by leasing the space to Walmart. And this method requires a detailed analysis of the income and expenses to determine how much a property could be expected to generate if sold on the open market. Then we have the cost approach, and this is typically used on our unique properties and industrial properties, where the properties are very unique, rarely sold on the open market, and that means there's typically a limited source of data. So with this approach, we calculate the cost of replacing any buildings or accessible fixtures on the land. We then apply a deduction for depreciation due to age, and we do any other adjustments that may be impacted where the condition is impacting the value of the property. We then determine the value of the land and add that to the overall valuation. Okay, next slide. So what draws our attention to a property? So it's typically one of the following things: a market sale, a request from a municipality or a property owner, a request for reconsideration or appeal, or building permit activity. And MPAC's role is to take building permits and those building plans and turn them into assessment. Our municipal stakeholders rely on MPAC assessments to levy property tax. And when MPAC delivers that assessment, our municipal stakeholders can then realize that new revenue. Every year, MPAC processes on average 300,000 building permits for new development and renovations. We are the only organization with a data set of all building permits in Ontario. So our understanding of this data gives us a unique perspective on ways to modernize its collection and exchange to support our municipal partners. So just some interesting insights based on the data that we have captured. In 2021, we saw more than 48,000 new residential homes constructed, with only 50% of those being detached homes. And did you know condos are actually getting smaller while those single-family detached homes are getting larger? Ontario condominiums are about 35% smaller than they were 25 years ago, while the average single-family detached home is about 25% larger. So in the 90s, the average condo peaked at about 1,100 square feet, but today we're showing them at about an average of 700 square feet. And there's similar information for the single family detached, where in the mid 1990s, they were about 2,000 square feet, and today they're actually about 2,500 square feet. So just some interesting information there. Next slide, please. So after we assess a property or change an assessment, we then mail the property owner a property assessment notice. And sometimes property owners don't agree with the assessed value. A property owner might then connect with you to let you know that they disagree with our assessment. But it's important to remember that property assessments are not taxation. So if you get an inquiry, you can help us by asking the property owner a few questions. And the first thing I always ask is, could you have reasonably sold your property on January 1st, 2016 for the assessed value? Then I point them towards About My Property in order to review the information we have on file regarding all of the details and just to make sure it's correct. And if they've used About My Property, they can also conduct comparable research on assessed values, similar properties in their area. After they've done all these things, and if they still disagree with their assessment, they can then file a request for reconsideration directly through About My Property or on MPAC.ca as well. And the fastest way to start a review is filing that request for reconsideration, or what we may commonly call it as RFR, is on About My Property or AMP. Okay, next slide, please. So let's spend a moment to address the relationship between property taxes and assessment. So assessments distribute taxes. They do not determine the taxes paid. When a province-wide assessment update occurs, the most important factor is not how much the assessed value of a property has changed, but rather how the assessed value has changed relative to the average change in the class within that community. Okay. So in anticipation, sorry, next slide, in anticipation of the next province-wide assessment, we implemented a strategy to address misconceptions about the relationship between assessed value and taxation. And it includes resources for municipalities that will ensure that when an announcement is made, we're ready with the support that you need. So there is a digital toolkit available on mpact.ca, which can help municipalities, including elected officials, mitigate any misinformation and provide support and resources to educate and inform property owners. In this digital toolkit, you can find a new video, and it's called How Your Property Taxes Are Calculated Based on the Assessed Value of Your Home. And I believe the next slide is the placeholder for that video. And do you have the link for that so that we can watch that?
We are just checking that. Sarah, thank you.
Okay. If not, I have, sorry?
Yes, but I don't think we do. So did you want to do screen sharing, and are you able to?
We can do that. Victoria, are you able to screen share and we'll pull up the video?
Sorry, you're both in as Sarah, so I'm going to try one of you, and if it's not the right one, I'll try the other.
Okay.
Perfect.
The other one.
Okay. 50-50.
It's just a short 3-minute video, but I think it's very beneficial to explain the relationship between the assessed values and the property taxes that are allocated by municipalities. So we'll just get that pulled up.
I think we all will find that quite important as well.
Yeah, and the video is actually able to be shared. Your municipal staff have access to it to link it directly to your website as well. If it's not already, might already be. So it's a great resource. Okay, Victoria, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Let me know if the sound, if the audio for the video works.
I
No sound.
don't hear any sound.
Okay.
No pressure, Victoria, we're fine.
We always test everything beforehand, but we don't typically use GoTo. So it's the new technology roadblock this morning.
Oops. I'm not sure how to share with my computer audio.
Okay, you know what? We'll make sure you guys get the link, and I highly recommend taking a moment and checking the video out. Okay, and we'll just move back onto the last couple slides within the presentation. No worries. Okay. Okay, so the next slide, it's just essentially a conclusion to the presentation. So I want to thank you for having both me and Victoria here today, and we want to stay connected. So if you are not already, I recommend that you subscribe to our In Touch newsletter. It's our monthly municipal e-newsletter, which can be done through mpact.ca. We also have a library of digital resources available. So be sure to reach out to me at any time if you have any questions or are looking for resources. And the last slide is just my contact information. as well as the contact information for my regional manager, Lynn Cunningham. So thank you. Any questions?
Okay, does any members of council have any questions? I see Councillor Armstrong over there, but your video is stuck, but
Oh,
go ahead.
thank you.
Mayor.
Through you, Mayor Lamshead. Great presentation, Sarah. Thank you. I have two questions. The first one is, I understand the province is going to be the responsible party that determines when you next do an assessment. Has there been any discussion about the phase-in for that new assessment? Because I think it'll be a greater increase than we've seen in the past, just because of the 6-year gap instead of the 4-year gap. So is there discussion about phasing it in over 6 years or something a little bit different than you've done in the past?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. There is absolutely consideration for all impacts that may be felt by both property owners and municipalities. And at this point, we have zero knowledge of what the province is going to propose for the new valuation date and or cycle. So currently it is the 4-year assessment cycle. There's rumors floating around about different valuation dates. There's rumors floating around that there may be a 1-year they'll go to a 1-year annual assessment like other provinces within Canada. But at this point, we have no information about a change to a phase-in or what that valuation date is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, go
And a
ahead.
second, if I
Deputy
may,
Mayor.
again, through you, Mayor Lamshead. A little off the wall, but I understand your 3 methods of evaluation or assessment are direct comparison, income, and cost. With regard to the income pillar, have there been discussions about assessing properties that serve as short-term rentals and derive income from that, and considering the income that they generate from that business activity as part of their assessment?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor. There is definitely talks across all of the municipalities. There's a huge percentage of municipalities in Ontario that are seeing these short-term accommodations or STAs pop up. And some municipalities see a large percentage of these properties actually being used for short-term rentals. At this point, we would require a legislative change in regards to those type of properties. So as of right now, any property like that is typically a single family dwelling or a cottage. A lot of them we see on your lakes, as those are popular properties for renters. There is also stipulations around how many days of the year some of these properties can be used. And municipalities at this point have their own kind of direction as to how you would like to, it's the word I'm looking for, kind of
Manage.
manage those types of properties. But at this point right now, it would require a legislative change and a different method in order for us to capture all of that information from property owners. Because as you know, our information is only as accurate as the information we are given or told. So that can be a barrier that other municipalities maybe have also experienced in some of the legislative or the policy changes they have made. So at this time, there is nothing on the table as far as having those types of properties fall within a different property class or tax class.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I'm seeing no hands. Would someone like to make a motion to receive this sorry, Councillor Braybrook.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamshead. Sarah, how much of an impact or input does a property owner have over their assessment, and how much weight do you put in that?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Property owners have the ability to go on aboutmyproperty.ca, and within that system, all of the property details, the square footage, the types of finishes, whether there's an enclosed deck or whether there's air conditioning, all of that information is on aboutmyproperty.ca. And what we want is property owners to ensure that that information is accurate. And if that information is accurate, then that January 1st, 2016 value, that assessed value that they're seeing, it should be as accurate as the information we have. At any time, if a property owner believes we have incorrect information, then by all means, please direct them to us. We want to ensure that the assessed values are being distributed equitably, which then in turn relates to those property taxes being distributed equitably. So if at any time a property owner has a concern, please send them to us and we will review their property free of charge.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? I'm seeing no hands. I would entertain a motion to receive this for information purposes. I see Councillor Cadigan and Councillor Franzen. All in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you very much. We can move on to delegations. We have Crystal Williams on the line, I hope. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Victoria.
Good morning. All of a sudden, I can't hear you. Mayor Lamshead, can you speak so I can hear you?
We can hear you, but we
Oh,
can't.
good. Okay, thank you. I lost you for a minute there. Good morning, Mayor Lamshead and members of council. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My internet connection is not the strongest, so I apologize for any delays, and I will keep my video off as well for that reason. I do have some documents to share, but we'll ask Jesse to pull those up as needed. Later this morning, you will hear from staff regarding Bessie Avenue North, item 6.6.3. As some of you know, some of my neighbors to the north on Bessie Avenue North own vacant land and are trying to obtain permits to build houses. I support their efforts. However, in the interest of time, I will focus on my unique situation. I have spoken to Councillor Franzen about my situation as well. In order for my neighbors to obtain permits, it has been determined that the rest of the road needs to be brought up to municipal standards. Earlier this year in a council meeting, my neighbor brought me into this situation by pointing out to council that my house was on the unfinished road and questioned how this property was given a permit to build a house years ago. That council meeting was the first that I and council learned that my house should not have been built. The previous CBO allegedly issued a permit to the previous owner in 2018 in error. I, however, bought this pre-built home on Bessie in February 2021, not land. I bought a house that was already here. I am, however, being told that I may be required to pay a portion of the road upgrade as well. Even though in this situation, I'm here because of the municipality's permit error. Jesse, could you please pull up the document titled Original Permit? Original building permit. Thank you. This is the permit that was issued to the previous homeowner and builder. It was stapled to the tree out front when we purchased this house. At the time of the council meeting earlier this year, where the error was realized, I was already 5 weeks into waiting for a new permit to add a small addition onto this house. Based on the new information brought forward, my permit was denied. I requested this permit to add an addition to our house because we needed additional space to accommodate my elderly parents moving in with us so that they can live independently longer. They also help me with childcare, since there are no childcare options in this area for young families that do not have a waiting list of 3 years or more. Jesse, could you please pull up the document titled Property Lines? This is a photo of our property frontage. On the right side, you'll see I've circled in red our property orange marker. The pavement ends between that marker and the yellow sign that you see in the distance. The yellow sign is a municipal sign that says no winter maintenance beyond this point. And just further in the distance, you'll see our driveway. Our property is partially on the finished road and partially on the unfinished road. I have been told it's my responsibility to bring this road up to standard, like the other landowners. Even though I already own a house here, and none of that information was public record at the time of purchase. My real estate agent and my lawyer did their due diligence when I purchased this house. There was nothing on the municipality side that confirmed I would be obligated to finish this road or any other condition to consider. We all did what was required of us, and there were no red flags. Respectfully, the municipality had many opportunities to catch its error when issuing the permit and at each inspection along the way on this house. I understand that the new CBO is just doing her job by denying the new permit. But just because the last CBO has left, that doesn't mean the municipality stops being liable for their mistakes. As much as I love it here, if I had known, I would not have bought this house and would have saved myself a lot of headache. I'm not even sure that I could sell this property now, given this information. A house and a property that you don't even have the right to put a shed on, but pay full municipal residential taxes for. Who would buy it? It's in municipal purgatory. Even if I could, the property value has no doubt been impacted by this new information. That's a financial cost that I can directly link back to the municipality's error. In summary, Mayor Lambshead and members of council, I voted for you. I have faith in due process. I have faith in you. What you cannot deny is that I'm in a different category of problem than the rest of the landowners on Bessie Avenue North. The landowners have homes elsewhere and own vacant land on Bessie. This is our home. It's the only one I've got. You also cannot deny that the municipality made an error in issuing the previous building permit. Correcting the municipality's error should not be my obligation to correct, especially at such a significant cost. You also cannot leave me in limbo, paying taxes and treating me as though I have a house on the finished road, but denying my rights to build even a shed or modify my home as if I'm on the unfinished road. If the municipality refuses to make this right today and take accountability for their error, my next call is to my lawyer to start a title insurance claim and a lawsuit against the municipality. And based on the facts in my initial conversation with my lawyer, it's likely that I would be successful. I don't want to do that. I would much rather work with the municipality, but you will have left me no choice. These are taxpayer dollars, so please let's avoid the additional legal fees and work together to correct this problem. So please, when you hear from staff later this morning on agenda item 6.6.3, I urge you to vote against staff's recommendation to leave Bessie Avenue North as it is, and instead consider approving the rest of the road be brought up to standard at the municipality's cost. The municipality has known about the issues on Bessie Avenue North for years, well before I got here, and has had plenty of time to work its completion project into the annual budgets since that time. It hasn't come as a surprise this year. There are also typically reserve funds available to the municipality, and it's likely you have errors and omissions insurance in place. At the very least, I will ask you to finish the portion of the road in front of my property to correct your error and take me out of limbo and reinstate my rights as a residential homeowner and taxpayer by issuing my permit to add the addition to my house that you have already approved. There are 2 additional documents if you'd like to review them, which is the survey and the parcel, but they don't necessarily show information about my unique situation, but I'm happy to answer any questions on those as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. I don't know if anyone has comments or questions. I see Councillor Franzen.
Through the mayor, I just wonder if staff would comment on any kind of remedies that they could see about the situation.
So thank you, and through you, Mayor Lambshead. There is a staff report later on with some options for council to consider. So if we could discuss it at that time, that would be better.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Don. Go ahead, Peter.
Just follow up. I was thinking about this particular situation, not the rebuilding of the road. I guess I would direct it through Barb, if through you, Mayor.
So thank you, and through you. The request and the report that's later on in the agenda definitely considers the feedback from the residents that we've received to date. So
Okay.
it's just some solutions to their concerns.
Okay, thank you. We will address that on 6.3.3 or 6.6.3. Okay, any other questions? I'm seeing none. Can we have a motion to receive for information? I see Councillor Braybrook and seconded by Deputy Mayor Armstrong. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Now we will move on to somewhere on this agenda. Budget summary. Donna Tagg.
Yes, thank you, and through you. So before you is a draft 2023 budget. I want to start out by saying I appreciate staff's time of preparing this document. There's a lot of work involved, and we start it right in the summer when everybody's typically very busy, but I appreciate all the hard work on it. So as a reminder, or as an overview, the levy and the tax rate calculations are based on the same level of service as in 2022, as required under our budget policy. And this budget only speaks to the Trent Lakes portion of the monies collected. So that's 43 cents of every dollar collected stays here, with 39 cents going to the county and 18 cents going to the province for education. So those amounts are set independently, and we receive the rates for those later on. So just a bit of an overview. There was a request sent out for the month of November for some budget feedback to the public to give them an opportunity to speak to any concerns or any comments. So you will see some of that included in the individual budgets, but there's also a bit of a general overview in the general government budget. So the budget summary, the very first page, shows an overall budget increase between 2022 and 2023 of $1,425,287.84, or 6.44%. This is largely due to an increase in the capital budget for previously approved items, and that includes the tanker number 13, which is being funded from reserve. We have the money for that purchase. Sweeper, tractor, and tandem. And then the fire rescue operating budget has had a bit of an increase this year due to some additional training requirements for that department and an extra staff member. So the actuals to date reflected in the documents are up until November the 28th. And should the draft budget be approved as is, it would result in a levy increase of, as shown there, 0.96%, or $97,932.85. And should council approve the additional request, the increase would be 3.46%. So there is a salary wage increase built into everybody's budget of 1.75%. That amount is in keeping with the union contract that has been negotiated. And there are wage grid increases as well built in. So I've also been able to obtain the growth for 2022, and that's been built into the rate calculations, and that is 0.57%. And based on this growth and the budget, you would see an increase of $4.08 on the average single detached family dwelling. Single family detached on the water, $6.80, and seasonal dwelling on the water, $6.11. So once again, that growth has been built in, and the growth is, Sarah alluded to there, really the pickup of assessment during the year related to building permits. So any additions, new builds, that type of thing. So maybe, Anne, if we could go to the next page, please. Sorry, thank you. Perfect. So I've outlined for you all of the requests that you'll hear today from staff. And there's a council request in there and what those are and how they would be funded. And once again, based on all of those requests, there would be an increase of $3 or a levy increase of 3.46%. So I've also provided you the amount at the bottom there based on the increase if all of those things were approved. So there would be a $32.04 increase on the average single family detached on the water, $53.41, and seasonal dwelling, $47.98, if all of those were approved. So you'll be hearing about those later on in each of the applicable budgets. So, and as a reminder, every 103,432.71 equates to a 1% tax levy increase, or $3.90 on every 100,000. So please feel free to ask any questions along the way. I should have said that from the beginning.
I'm sure Deputy Mayor Armstrong will have a question. Go ahead.
The first of many. Sorry, unless I lose my voice. Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamson. Don, I think you know this off the top of your head. I wouldn't spring it on you otherwise. But the tax levy increase, if all of the requests are included, would be, sorry,
2.50.
2.46%.
Yeah.
What would the tax rate increase be? Less than that, I know, but I don't know. If you don't know that, that's
Yeah, I don't
fine.
know that right off
Okay.
the top. Yeah. Thank you.
I think that's an important number for us
Yeah,
to
it is
understand.
built into the,
Yeah, the
it's
calculation.
built into the amount at the below, but that is below there. But
I
yeah, I
think for our
don't have that right
taxpayers, that's what's, important to them, is how much have you increased my tax rate?
yeah, so that's built in, that tax rate's built into those numbers at
Yep.
the bottom, but I don't have the actual rate.
It's okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I should be able to calculate it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I'm seeing no hands.
So thank you. And
Move
for you, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the revenue budget. So the revenues for each of the departments are included with the department, but I have provided you an overview of the entire revenue that's collected at the back of the binder there. So there could be some additional revenue in 2023. We are partway through a couple of projects that are being funded through Trillium funding, FedDev for Odenang Park, and the Trillium is actually Odenang Park too. And the RTO8, which is for the economic development strategy. And it really depends on what's spent in 2022. So there could be some extra revenue there depending on what's required for 2023. So OMPF funding is, we have that amount that was included in the last agenda. So it's up 26,200. So 1,380,100, and that's included in the capital budget. It goes towards those costs. And there's also some revenue that you'll see that's included in the public works budget that is related to the aggregate rebate. And that's monies that the municipality receives under Ontario Regulation 244.97. And that's for quarries that are operated on Crown property. So I budgeted 160,000 for that, for those funds. So I just thought I'd give you an overview of revenue as well. So if it's okay, we can move on to the capital budget. If that.
I think we can. I don't see any questions. Thank you very much. We can move on to Donna once again.
Sure. Thank you. And through you. So there is an overview for you for the capital budget. So some of the efficiency measures in 2022, the work was completed on Bessie Avenue South and Saunders Road. There was an update to the asset management plan under Ontario Regulation 588.17. And there is a review underway from Henson and Associates to allow us to proceed and be compliant with the next requirement, which is July 1st, 2024, related to buildings and equipment. So we continue to work on the design of the new joint public works and recreation facility, and that we'll talk about a little later. They completed the Buckhorn pedestrian crossover, and we were able to tender some vehicles for 2023 because there are delays in production. So we want to make sure we have those vehicles in time. We completed some work, extensive work with MicroRage for a new server and backup system. And we also continue to do some cooperative tendering with the county. So in 2023, you'll see some initiatives that the department heads will be speaking to today. There's some microsurfacing and crack sealing, and we are doing the Salmon Lake culvert. There's new pickup new to fleet pickup for Public Works. We're looking at design documents for emergency services and Public Works for a new build in Buckhorn. A new kitchen in Galway. There's a folder stuffer in there. Our folder stuffer is at the end of its life, and it's an important piece of equipment for us. And yeah, some of the other things, the tanker will come, and sweeping operations as well. So the next page really just gives you an overview of the increase for 2023 in the capital budget. And you will see that the draft budget is 11,962,187.63. And that is an increase, but the overall levy requirement is down because we are using reserve funds. We have the money set aside for some of those purchases, so. Am I okay just to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Move right
thank you.
along. If you have any
So the
questions,
first-
please put up your hand.
Yes, please. So the first portion of the capital budget relates to Public Works, so I'll let Evan speak to that, please.
Welcome, Evan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Lamstead. Thank you, Donna. Through you, Mayor Lamstead, the members of council, before you today is the Public Works capital budget. As Donna mentioned, if you have any questions or anything, just feel free to ask at any point. Proud of a couple initiatives that we completed this year. We did some asphalt paving within the little hamlet of Buckhorn there. I really felt like that was a good program. It really cleaned up that area, make it look nice for the tourists coming in the summer, and easier for winter plowing for my guys. Some of the programs I've highlighted for next year is, as Donna mentioned, was microsurfacing. This is a new program that Trent Lakes has not done in the past. It is a finer sort of asphalt-like surface. If anybody's traveled recently on the north part of the 507, that's the type of product that will be used. It's a very thin layer, but instead of a surface treatment where it takes traffic for the stone to set in the tar, the microsurfacing is finished product, so it doesn't need that setting. So once it's done, it looks beautiful. And from experiences in other municipalities, it's very well received by the public because they think they got a brand new asphalt road. Some of the other programs is a crack sealing, as Donna mentioned. This is a very important preventative maintenance procedure that's completed on hot mix asphalt roads. So these are roads such as Adam and Eve Road, Hill Estates, within Alpine Lake and Sumcott. These areas you do the crack sealing. This helps prevent water from entering into the road base. And that's typically where you find your worst degradation of your asphalts and then the base below, because water will get in and it'll expand, contract over the freeze thaw cycles. So it's important to get in there. You grind out the crack, you seal it with a tar, and then it sort of extends and holds the moisture on top. This is a newer program that the municipality hasn't done in the past, and it's sort of something that we'll continue to do each year and pick at these different asphalt roads as they sort of degrade to ensure that we can extend their useful life. We do have a new pickup that we're replacing. This was an older pickup purchased in 2015 that was never retired and is getting very tired. So we'll be good to get a new pickup there. And then a couple other units. We're getting a new sweeper unit for next year. This is a 20-year-old unit that we're replacing. I'm very excited for that because we'll be able to do more pickup broom sweeping. Currently, a lot of the practices involves a loader broom and sweeps the sand and stuff right into the ditch, which then you have to scoop out and turn a few years down the road. So if you have a pickup broom, then you can just dump it into a tandem, and then we can dispose of the debris in the proper way. A couple other things we have, as you know, at the bottom there is the big budget items is the new buildings. I'm not only at 49, but we're also looking at getting into the design for the Buckhorn Depot. Chief Brockbank and I have talked multiple times about this program and just the process that we're looking to do, how we want to make sure it's done together cooperatively and ensure that it's the municipality not only gets what they really truly need, but the municipality sort of makes most of that site and makes most of their funding. So we're going to get into that. And then obviously the big depot on 49, which Donna will speak to later on. But it is, as we saw on the road tour, it's 49 depot is quite small. It is in need of replacement and definitely need a space for the guys to work and properly clean the trucks. So as Donna mentioned, I do have a report regarding the Bessie North. but that is in the operating side of things, so I'll speak to that at that time. So if council has any questions regarding the capital, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you.
Go
To you, Mayor Lamson. Just a quick question. The 50,000 for a structural review of 49. I know that it's already been determined as to be, I think, uninhabitable going forward. So we're not going to put people in there, but what decisions will be made as a result of that review?
So through you, Mayor Lamb said to council, or Deputy Mayor Armstrong. The 50,000, we did have a structural assessment done previously by the consultant. However, due to the existing conditions, they weren't able to complete a full assessment. So we'd be looking at specifically the ability to use that building as sort of a cold storage. So looking at the structural, the bones of the building to make sure that obviously that we can continue to store some equipment out of the weather in the cold storage as that. So obviously not operational, but more of just a lack of a better term, a barn to keep the snow off because we have certain equipment that we don't use throughout the winter. So we like to keep that away to help protect it from the elements.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see Councillor Franzen. Go ahead.
Just follow-up question through the mayor. Would that be for both the roads department and the recreational department?
Thank you, Councillor Franzen. Through you, Mayor Lamb said to Councillor Franzen. That would be determined at a later time. Most of the larger equipment is public works equipment, so it would be intended that it'd be mostly public works equipment. If parks have a couple smaller pieces, maybe they can fit in there, sort of thing. That might be an option, but obviously it's sort of something to see what we can do there, and then maybe at that point, then we determine operationally how to best to handle it.
Okay,
Thank you.
any other questions? Seeing no hands, we can move on.
Next.
Thank you very much, Evan. Back to Donna.
Yes, thank you, and through you. So the next portion of the capital budget is Dylan for recreation and facilities. So we'll let Dylan speak to that, please.
Right, thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamshead. Pretty short list here. We do have a pickup replacement in 2023 in keeping with our asset management plan. Council will see a budget request later on regarding next gen 911, and in that request will be to retain our existing pickup that we are replacing, as well as procure the new pickup, because we will need an additional vehicle to complete the work associated with that, but we'll talk to that when we get to it. Community hall and building land improvements. So there's a base amount in these figures that's in accordance with our asset management plan. And then any additionals have budgeted and planned, such as the Galway Hall, we put in on top. Some requests and stuff we can work into the base amount, and we'll detail that in a later report as well. An amount for the recreation and facilities portion of the joint building at 49, budgeting for a future pickup replacement, and IT as well. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much, Dylan. Anyone have any questions? I am seeing no hands. Thank you very much, Dylan. We can move on. Go ahead, Donna.
Thank you, and through you. So the next portion is administration. So in administration, we have a new folder stuffer, which I mentioned before. So that would be coming out of tax sale reserve monies that we have. It used to be that if any surplus funds were available, we could apply through the courts to obtain them. And we do have a reserve for those funds. So we'd be looking to use those for that purchase. And a new furnace for the municipal office, and we'd be looking to use energy reserve money for that in the amount of 25,000.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Lamson. The new furnace, I know that that's going to improve our GHG emissions, but where is it in its useful life?
Thank you, and through you, I would ask Dylan if he could speak to that for me, please.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. This building was built in 2002. The furnaces are original oil furnaces, so they're about 20 years. So we are about getting to the end of the useful life. We do find that the maintenance is increasing them, as well as we should be able to see some benefits to switching to propane with efficiency, as well. We can probably speak to our insurance company because they always like to see the oil tank that's sitting in the basement here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, we can move on to the next item.
So thank you, and through you. So I will ask our fire chief to speak to the next portion of the budget, please.
Welcome.
Thank you, Donna. Through you, Mayor Lambshead, through council, if there's any questions that you have for my budget ahead of you or in front of you, sorry. We do have a new transit van plan for Station 2 that was pre-approved in this year's budget of 2022. And as Donna spoke, it's about 6 to 9 months to acquire something such as that today. And that would, we actually retained a vehicle that was to be sold last year because we had a mini pumper that was not fit for the road anymore, could not be certified anymore. So we retained that, and we had pre-approval, so have not got to that process yet, but that's next on our list to have ordered. And as Donna spoke as well, we have the money set aside for tank 13, which will be replacing our oldest apparatus, which is a 2000. So it is actually 2 years overdue. And we were originally waiting for the fire hall renovations and such before we went ahead with a larger truck, but it will fit in the station, rest assured. So we're good that way. And it's supposed to be here in March. And as Evan spoke as well, we're working towards the building replacement in Station 1 with Fire and Public Works as a joint venture. And boat 37, we did a review on the boat, and the boat is in good condition. So we're gonna keep the boat, and we're just replacing the 2-stroke outboard motor with an electric start 4-stroke motor for Station 3. So there's a price of $12,000 in there. The motor is actually in. It came in this week, so, and it came in around the $8,000 mark. So
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Any questions? I see Councillor Brave.
I know we, Chief, I know we spoke some time ago about the new training requirements.
Yes.
For your volunteer firefighters. I was wondering if you'd be able to speak to how that new requirement does affect your budget and any issues as far as retention of your volunteer firefighting group.
yes, of course, through you, Mayor Lambshead, to Councillor Braybrook. The operating budget you will see when we get to that portion is close to doubling because of that. And also they closed the fire college last year during COVID. So the $65 courses that were available to us now are in the $300 to $600 range. So that's going to be substantial to our operating budget. And the timing of the courses moving forward. The retention portion of recruitment it's going to be difficult. It is. It's the same everywhere. We don't have the population to pick from. And then the days of helping your neighbor and as such are gone to the wayside. So this will be a fully certified firefighter within a 3-year timeline from the date they're hired, which is approximately 400 hours per firefighter to train them to our level of service that we provide today. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Any more questions about the capital portion of our budget? I'm seeing none. We can move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and through you. So the next pages of the budget show the actual line items and where they are allocated for the individual amounts that we've already talked about. So I don't know if there's any questions there.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thanks, Mayor Lambton. Just a couple. The OSIP grant
Yeah.
is quite a bit lower than it was last year. Can you explain why
Yes.
that is, Donna?
Thank you, and through you. The amount for the OSIP grant, we don't know at this time. There's been a commitment that each municipality is receiving 100,000 at a minimum from what I see. So I have put that in. That amount is based on the required update from July 1st of 2022 under 588.17 under that regulation. So they're actually looking at everyone's individual plans, and then they're looking at an amount based on those.
So there may be some upside to that.
Could be through you. There could be some upside, yes.
Okay.
And if I'm
Thank you very much. Go ahead.
land improvements, it's 3000-5170 is $1 million. Is that the sand domes?
Through you, Mayor Lamb's head? Yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay. That's it.
Okay. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Any other questions? I'm seeing no hands. We can move on to our next item.
So thank you, and through you. So the next item is the updated report related to the facility replacements. So as council will recall, there was a report brought in October, and the request was to bring it back to this meeting. And it provided some options related to the build of the 49 depot. So just to give a little bit of an overview. So the report that you're being presented with today provides the recommendations of staff on when specific buildings would be replaced. So we will have the discussion on the dedicated mechanic building. We would, if council support any changes that are required or expected, and as you will recall, the budget for that came in substantially higher than had been anticipated. So we believe that the build could start in the summer of 2023 and be completed in the winter of 2024. There's a joint and fire and public works building in Buckhorn, and the design of that is in 2023 with the build in 2024 and completed 2025. And the build of the Cavendish joint structure would be in 2026, and the Galway structure in 2028 to be completed in 2029. So the options provided in that report for you in October were to keep the building the original footprint, 17,250,000 square feet, in line with the operational needs that were identified for the two departments that would be using that facility, and include the addition of the crane, and delay the replacement of the sand dome and investigate the cost of the fire water servicing. As council will recall, that's a substantial cost, but seemed to be uncertain at the time that we were having discussions on it as to the actual amount. So option 2 was keeping the building size footprint of 17,250 square feet in line with the identified operational needs, and design the building to include the addition of a crane, but add the crane at a later date. So delaying the replacement of the sand dome and investigate once again the cost of the fire water servicing. And the option 3 presented was direct the engineering consultant to provide the cost saving in reducing the building size as 17,250 square feet and remove the crane from the design. Or the final option was to direct the engineering consultant to provide the cost savings in reducing the size of the build by reducing the 2 bays and removing the crane from the design as well. So we were hoping to get some feedback today from council on any direction you would want staff to proceed on in this. We do have some preliminary designs from Greenview, but we haven't at this time reviewed those, just based on the fact that the current size may not be what council still want to see. So we are hoping to have some good discussions today on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Donna. Any questions from council? I see Councillor Franzen, go ahead.
Just a comment. I do support option 4. I think that we can reduce the size of the building if we're talking about a mechanics facility, not a central depot.
Okay, thank you very much for your comment. Go ahead. I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lamstead. I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Franzen on this. However, I realize that that would eliminate the crane from the building. And it also eliminates 2 bays. So I'd like to give Evan an opportunity to speak to the importance of a crane and what not having it would mean for us. You know, recognizing that we're the only municipality that would have one. That's a little bias in there. But I'd like to hear from our Public Works Director on the crane, as well as the impact of removing 2 bays.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Through you, Mayor Lamstead, to Deputy Mayor Armstrong. So the crane, the key thing about the crane is it's a big health and safety issue. So currently there are other ways of using what the crane would be done with, such as when you're working on the plows or you're working on the wings and stuff like that. We do have some floor jacks, floor cranes sort of thing that we can use. We have loaders. However, the crane would just make it that much more safely for our guys to do any operations. It also opens up the opportunity if down the road there is more of a desire for the municipality to do more mechanical work in-house. When I say that, I'm speaking to the other departments such as Parks and Recreation, as well as Fire, that crane would be helpful working on those vehicles as well. But yes, as you mentioned, there aren't many other municipalities within the county that have the crane, but it would be it's a good health and safety safeguard to have. And speaking to the 2 bays, obviously the 2 bays would limit your any opportunity for growth. My thought would, if we do eliminate any bays, that there would be the discussion of how we could, if need in future, build on to that to include those 2 bays. I'm thinking 15, 20 years down the road if there's growth in the area. But when it comes to specific storage of vehicles, my thought is if we remove the 2 bays, it would remove one of the working mechanics bays. Right now, the mechanic would have 2 working bays. He would be reduced down to just 1 working bay. However, it would be something that could be managed. However, it wouldn't be ideal. Like I said, it would be something if we start to look at maintaining more vehicles and servicing a larger fleet, that the room may be in demand more then. But however, as we're only currently servicing public works vehicles, the mechanic utilizing 1 specific bay should be sufficient for the time being. It's just any growth is where we start to be limited. So it would be, if we're removing any bays, it would be I would want to have the discussion with the consultant if in the future, and we wanted to add these bays, what the process would, how that would impact it down the road, sort of thing.
And just to follow up, if I may, we are assuming that when the new Galway depot is built, that those vehicles would be housed up there. So we're not using these incremental bays at Buckhorn to house the Galway rolling stock.
My intent would still have the trucks operate out of the 49 depot. At the time, there is no operational plan to have trucks operating out of Galway. Currently, with the size of the municipality and trying to create a team atmosphere, right now with the two sites, it's hard enough. If you have another 3rd site and they're operating, you're basically, with lack of a better term, you're almost going back in time to where there's going to be 3 municipalities again. Unfortunately, when they do that, they sort of just operate on their own, in their own way, sort of thing. So it'd be important to still have the operators attend 49, and understanding where a lot of the workforce is. Unfortunately, just due to the nature of the municipality, there's not a lot of workers coming from the northern parts. A lot of the workers come from more of the southern areas, City of Kawartha Lakes and Bobcaygeon area.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
Is there any need for 2 wash bays? Could we do with 1 wash bay?
Thank you, Councillor Franzen. Through you, Mayor Lamstead. The 2 wash bays would be more ideal to use, as it is a double. The way the garage is designed, it's a double bay, so it's a straight shot double bay. So it would be useful to have. especially when you have larger trucks and stuff like that. And especially in the winter, if you have one guy just waiting for the hose, you never know how some of the other guys take a little bit more time cleaning their trucks, which is a good thing. However, you still want to have that option to be able to wash 2 trucks at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? No hands?
I've just
Go-
one
go-
comment.
yeah, go ahead.
When
Councillor
you
Fran.
look at the distances from 49 to where the previous bays were in Galway, it's virtually the same distance as to Buckhorn.
Yep. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? I'm seeing none. I just have a comment. I think the whole idea there was for that to be a mechanics facility. So reducing one of the mechanics bays is not really what we are trying to do there. I think that's just a concern of mine. I think as we want to service more of our own vehicles, we need some space for mechanics to work. Just a comment. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
I think Mayor Lamb said that staff are looking for us to select one of these 4 options so they can move forward and put the appropriate amount in the budget.
Absolutely do too. Does anybody have an idea about an option? I mean, you can modify the options, you can keep them as they are, whatever council would like. I see Councillor Franzen.
I'd like to make a motion to accept option 4 and reduce to 1 wash bay.
And that would include the removal of the crane or?
The crane isn't involved in option 4.
I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any comments? I will call for a vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we can move on now again to our next item on the agenda, which is, I believe, Donna once again. Are you introducing it? So go ahead,
Before
Deputy.
we do that,
Yes.
Mayor Lamb said if I may, I don't know if this is a proper place, but could we talk about the Galway proposal for a moment in terms of buildings, future builds? Where to start? The Public Works Depot was originally scheduled to be replaced in 2024. The new proposal has it 2028. The Galway Fire Hall was originally scheduled for 2030. We're moving it to 2028 so that we can combine the two and build them together, which makes enormous sense to me. The last we heard on this, however, was a statement that that was now feasible, because in the original facilities plan, we did not think the land allowed for a consolidated facility. So I think we were expecting a little more substance around how we could consolidate them and what that would mean. And we really haven't seen that staff report. I'm not sure we need that today, but given we're being asked to approve a schedule, I think we would want to do so having a little better information about what that plan is. And again, I guess there's nothing in the budget for it, but I think you have asked us to approve the revised schedule. And I'm not comfortable doing that until I know a little bit more of the details about the Galway proposal.
Thank you very much. Anyone care to comment on that?
So thank you, and through you. The schedule was changed to, in keeping with the operational requirements at each of the individual sites. So as far as the location, it's my understanding that can happen, but yes, that wouldn't be something I'd be prepared to talk to today. Is that something we could bring something back on that, please?
Perhaps I could suggest that Deputy Mayor Armstrong, defer the approval of the updated replacement schedule pending the further step.
I would be happy to do that. Thank you.
That's a motion to defer that part of it. Do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Cadigan. All in favor of deferring that? That motion has carried. Thank you very much. Okay, Donna, I think you take the lead again. I'm not sure who you want to.
Thank you, and through you. The next report is from Dylan, and it's speaking to the community hall requests.
Thank you, Donna, and thank you, Mayor Lambshead. To all of council, before you have a report that's put together each year for the councillors who haven't been around before. We reach out to all of our community centers that are run by volunteer groups and ask them what's on their wish list. So the background section of this report is every item that came through in our conversations. Highlighted in blue are the ones recommended by staff. I've provided some cost estimates and offered some comments within those each line as well. I'm not going to go through line by line, but I will summarize the recommended options, which is to continue with the kitchen replacement at the Galway Hall. Based on some conversations this year, our budgeted amount of $155,000 last year was not going to be sufficient, so that's been estimated at $200,000. We're hoping to get an RFP out this year, closing early in the new year to get a kind of more final budget number for council's approval before final budget approval. A new cooler door for the walk-in cooler at Galway. Additionally, the Galway Hall, when council did the road tour, they would notice that there is some carpeting there, and we did kind of talk about that was one of their requests, that they would like to match that flooring where the carpeting is to the new floor that's going in the kitchen. The Cavendish Hall has requested window cleaning, which in the interest of safety, because some of the windows are quite high there, staff are recommending to do that. Some painting at the Cavendish Hall, some brickwork along the exterior, or on the exterior of the hall and the steps leading up and by the library entrance. The Lakehurst Hall has requested a generator. Staff are recommended that that generator be budgeted over 3 years. So this year's contribution being $51,000 of a $155,000 total cost. And the Lakehurst Hall has requested an air conditioner for the basement of the hall, so it would also service the kitchen, just how the HVAC is set up there, as well as some taps throughout the building there. The ones that were installed originally when it was built kind of spray everywhere, and it's a bit of a mess for them to deal with. So the total estimated cost of all of these options is $415,000. From reserves, we're looking to take $155,000 within the existing base asset management budget that's already included in this. In the capital budget as presented today is $53,000 we can put into that. The additional budget increase requested being $103,000 for 2023. And then in subsequent years, 24 and 25, we would have the remaining amounts for the Lakehurst Hall generator. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Okay. Does any members of council have a question? I'm seeing Councillor Cadigan. Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor. The generator, when would it be installed?
It would be installed in 2025 after all of the monies have been collected.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Lambshead. Generator topic as well. I'm a little unclear, maybe it's probably to our fire chief, in terms of what the requirements are in order for a building of ours to be a reception center. And I don't really know what a reception center is versus in an emergency system, a reception center versus an accommodation center. Maybe you can just share briefly what that means. I'm in support of the generator for sure, but I just don't know the connection with emergency protocols.
Yes, through you, Mayor Lambshead, to Deputy Mayor Armstrong. There is an actual a mandate for specifics on what we would like to turn it into. I don't have the exact bullet points of what it is, but there's a whole bunch of things that deal with public health. You have to have showers. Are they going to sleep there? Are they just there to meet with a reception center would be bring you in, get you some water, have some maybe light refreshments or some sandwiches and get you on a bus and send you to Peterborough to a hotel, depending on what the situation is or the emergency is. We've talked about this for quite some time with all of our buildings. And because of our geographics, is we don't really have anywhere to house somebody in an emergency. So it'd be just bring them in, collect their information. Do they have pets, their medication, that type of thing through Red Cross or the public health, and then get them on their way to wherever they would need to be, like I say, depending on the emergency. So it's really what we want to do with these buildings and pick a path moving forward. I think the generator is a good idea no matter what, and especially just to keep your business continuity going. If you have a building rented out for a wedding or something and the power goes out, you have to cancel that event, so you're losing that money as well. So, but I can bring forward the breakdown of reception center versus, I don't mind doing that at all.
Thank you very much.
If I can follow, and thank you, that would be very much appreciated, I think, because I think given we own these buildings and we have no place to let people sleep, I think that's something we should perhaps look at and consider, especially as we're looking at facility replacements and upgrades. So would appreciate a staff report on that.
Okay.
And the generator, I just want to table the idea, do we really need the larger generator? Or do we just need something that services essential systems? And remember, we're talking about buildings that currently are utilized 10 to 15% of the time. And are non-essential.
Right. So through you, Councillor, or Mayor Lemshead, to Councillor Armstrong, or to Deputy, I'll get this right one of these days.
We're all taking our time getting through that.
Yeah, exactly. I would imagine through the facilities, an electrician would probably recommend what is actually needed to run and equip that building. So what does it draw for power? What is it being used for? And then future needs. So if you are going to have any renovations or anything different being added to that building, what is required? I would imagine that's how we do our buildings. So and Dylan could probably speak to that clearer, but yeah, I'm not familiar with what size of generator they're looking for, but that's usually what your building needs for power, what it's being used for, so on and so forth.
I think that would be the follow-up is, Dylan, have you sourced this generator yet?
Yep. Through you, Mayor. So we did have our generator contractor come out, and so these numbers are from our generator contractor. We went to the building, we turned on every load source that we could, tried to determine the max load that it can currently put out, and then we looked at kind of the essential systems being the lights, the outlets, the water, the heat and cooling, fridges, that kind of thing. And that's why we determined our lower numbers. So, the bottom end number here we're looking at is 125,000. If we're looking at, so if I compare this to Galway, our Galway generator, if we were to purchase it, it would be significantly less, yes. But in terms of business continuity, you wouldn't keep a rental going at Galway with that generator. Only like half the lights in the building work, outlets, the water system works, a few of the lights, like I said, only a couple outlets. The building can't continue to operate. So if we're looking at business continuity of a rental, a residential, 20, 25 kilowatt generator is not going to do the trick there. The building could, with the smaller generator here, the 155 amp generator, the building could continue to operate for an event. Yes, they might have to turn off the electric backup stoves that they've got, maybe turn off one of the AC units and not be running electric kettles on all the outlets. That's kind of the situation we're looking at here. If we're looking at future proofing, again, down the road, the life of a generator might be 20, 30, 35 years. we start looking at electric car chargers and stuff if we want to service those in an outage. You know, a 155 amp generator is not going to service those in an outage, and you're buying the generator twice. Either way, we've built into the prices here that the transfer switch and all the hard install items in the building into the electrical system are all going to be outfitted for the maximum 400 amp generator. So if council did down the road decide to change to a bigger generator, they could without having to rip out all the transfer switches. That was something that I wanted to do, because the cost difference between putting a smaller one in and just putting in a transfer panel was going to be negligible by the time you did the labor and materials.
Okay, thank you. I see Councillor Franzen, go ahead.
Yeah, and further on the generator through the mayor. Are we looking at replacing all of our generators in the community centers to this kind of unit, or is it adequate what we have at the other community centers?
Through you, Mayor Lambshead, to Councillor Franzen, Cavendish is certainly adequate. It was designed to meet the needs of that building. Galway would be a candidate if this is the direction that council wants to go moving forward. That, you know, we have business continuity, as Fire Chief Brockbank has alluded to there. If we want that, then yes, Galway should be done as well within due time. Council has spent after the kitchen this coming year, we'll have spent a significant amount of money up there. So we're kind of trying to shift some priorities a little bit.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? I see Councillor Braybrook, go ahead.
Yeah, I may be a little biased coming from the emergency services background. Just a comment as far as the generator at Lakehurst Community Center. I think it would be wise to think that you would need, in an emergency, you would rather have the capacity than not. So I think it's important that it's considered that you have a larger capacity in the event of an emergency.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions? I think we can move on to our next. Go ahead.
Motion.
Okay, yeah. Would you like to make a motion?
I would.
Please do.
I'd like to make a motion that council receive the report for information, and further that we approve the addition of 103,000 to the 2023 Parks and Recreation draft budget to be collected as described.
Okay, I have a motion. Now do I have a seconder? I see Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much. Okay. We can move on to the next item. I believe it's Donna. Oh, sorry, yes. Deputy Mayor Armstrong, I think you have a capital budget request.
Right. So thank you, Mayor Lambs, and through you. This is a request to include in the budget the expansion of the fob system, which is the little tags that we use to get into this building. We only did it for some buildings. The recommendation is that we expand it to the community centers for a number of reasons. One, it certainly improves the security of access in terms of who is using those facilities. It makes it easier for us centrally to control who has access, as well as to manage the number of people with access out there, because we need to program all of that. And I think if we are looking to, and most of us mentioned it on the campaign trail, if we are looking to try and expand the use of the facilities that we own, the community halls, that it would make it far easier for outside groups to access the building. If we had a visiting nurse coming, for example, we already have the AA group, we had Tai Chi. Right now, those people either have to have their own keys, or they have to, I know at Cavendish, I had to go next door and get the key from Kathy whenever I did my Pilates course, which was not always convenient. So I think this would be a precursor and an enabler for us to expanding the utilization of our community halls, as well as a security thing. and would reduce our liability. And the number, the funding estimate, I got from Dylan, who installed them in the other buildings, and any questions on that, I'm going to refer to Dylan.
Okay, do we have any questions for Dylan on that? Go ahead, Councilor Franzen.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to second the motion.
Okay.
And then I'd like to ask Dylan what he would assume the approximate cost would be.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Lambshead, to you, Councillor Franzen. So this was a bit of a throwing a shot in the dark, this one here. So we spent about $4,000 on our municipal office system. Here we did have, proper electronic strikes already in place, automatic openers. We already had a lot of the actual hard infrastructure here for the door. A lot of our doors are more put a key in and you turn a knob kind of thing at the community centers. So I do have to get, we've already reached out to our contractor who installed the ones here, is familiar with the system. Additionally, we'd be looking at about 3 doors per community center versus the 2 doors here. So that figure was, taking that 4,000, 50% for the extra door, and then, estimating a couple thousand to 4,000 for improving the actual door infrastructure on site. This figure, I'm going to assume that it's going to change a bit, but until I have that number, I couldn't give you anything more accurate than what I have right now. This would definitely be, I will speak, to the benefits for us for this system though. We have, I'll be honest, there's an unknown amount of keys out there, right? Because every volunteer gets a key. We don't, nobody really knows if they make a copy of the key and if they retain it, if they give it to a sibling or a child or a parent, what have you, or if, a person running a program there, be it Pilates, what have you, if that key comes back, we don't know. With the fobs, it's all controlled. I can program it through the computer here. It's a very quick turnaround. Chastity, anybody there can attest to it. When they ask for it, it can come very, very quickly. In addition, it is mentioned here with a VPN service at each hall. So right now we have a VPN that, we here at the office that we put in place for staff to be able to work from home. What that does is that if anywhere in the world I have an internet connection, I can act as if I'm actually on the local network, which is where I need to be able to connect to the fob system applicable for this building or any other building if we had a VPN system set up in it. So I could remotely program a fob. So, let's say Jane Doe has lost their key to a community center, swinging by the office on their way to work, I lost my key. If we're in here, we can program that. Additionally, if we've got, a leak has happened at Cavendish, Mayor Lamb said, just to bring back some good old memories there, our plumber, if we have access to that on either our phone or a computer remotely, we can just unlock the doors remotely, the strikes will unlock, and that plumber could go in without a municipal staff member who maybe they're engaged in another related emergency somewhere else. We can just let them in. We can set a time delay on it. It's a very versatile system. So if we have, any way of reducing the amount of access to our facilities while, maintaining its availability to be accessed, when needed, then I think it's a great advantage in a municipality that's hindered greatly by geographics.
Okay, thank you very much. I see Councillor Franzen, go ahead.
Follow-up question. So we're talking in the neighborhood of $30,000, Dylan?
Yes, for the 3 of them. That's my best estimate right now.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamshead. And in terms of how it would be funded, I was hopeful that it wouldn't impact the taxpayers, but we might be able to fund it through service delivery funds or accessibility funds or modernization funds, in which case I need to turn that over to our CAO and treasurer.
Thank you. Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lamshead. Yes, I would say service delivery funds. We have spent some of those in 2022 that I haven't done the entries for yet, but I would estimate there's around 250,000 still in that. So there's room for that purchase for sure.
Okay, thank you very much. I see Councillor Cadigan with a question.
Through you, Mayor Lambshead. Dylan, would this work during power outages? Are the generators going to power these?
Through you, sorry. I took a bite. Through you, Mayor Lamb's head to you, Councillor Cadigan. So Cavendish for sure. Lakehurst, obviously there's no generator there, so it would not. So we would have to look at a, much of these have a 12 volt backup. I could go look in the room beside me here and see if there's a 12 volt battery in there, but you know, similar to an alarm system, how it functions is it runs on a 12 volt backup. Additionally, there would be a manual key still associated with every door. We want to have some redundancy, right? So, you know, be it a lock box on the door that we just have the code to, or, you know, just a key here at the office that we keep. In the event of emergency, we'd still have access to the building. In Galway, there's a generator up there. Power draw would be very limited. We either could tie it into an outlet that's existing on that generator, or there would be sufficient room on that system up there, that generator to, you know, for the small amount of draw that would be associated with this. It's really just ensuring that there's a 12 volt backup would be, you know, would charge similar to your emergency exit light system, have a couple 12 volt batteries, and it, you know, it would last through.
Okay, thank you.
It does run, sorry, I didn't mean to cut off there through you, Mayor Lamb. So it does run independent of internet. It doesn't need the internet to function all the time. If that goes down, it will keep going without internet. That's not a necessity.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I'm going to call for a vote. Sorry, I have a question from my clerk, Jesse
Can
Clark.
I just confirm that the motion is that council approve the capital budget request of $30,000 to be funded from service delivery reserves for FOB expansion to other municipal buildings?
Perfect. Thank you.
The motion, and is that the motion you feel you seconded?
Yep.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? And that motion has carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we are going to move on now to government services, or general government, which will be Donna Taggart, our CAO/treasurer.
Thank you. And through you. So as an overview, the general government budget includes spending for council, the CAO, corporate services and finance, and anything economic development and tourism. The community improvement planning is in this budget, integrity commissioner, elections, and any annual service delivery reviews, as well as the 2 medical centers, one in Kinmount and one in Buckhorn. So some of the 2022 initiatives that were undertaken, the council approved the hiring of a legislative coordinator, executive assistant to the CAO, which has certainly created some efficiencies. We did the update on the asset management plan, the multi-year accessibility plan review. We, one of the big things was an election that was undertaken by our corporate services department, and council did approve a volunteer policy. So some of the 2023 initiatives, we're looking to continue to reduce any paper that we use, continue to work with our HR consultant. That work is also contained in this budget, just to make sure we implement the appropriate policies and practices, and we're looking at having an electronic upload of timesheets. That's what we're aiming for. So we're going to update the community improvement plan to create some efficiencies for businesses. The economic development strategy is in the process of being updated for efficiencies as well. We're looking to use service delivery money for the accessible document remediation services and to create some templates. There's a strategic plan going to be created. The advisory committee structure, we're looking to ensure the committee work is productive and supports council. Some template work for council reporting and internal workflows, and improved records management processes. We're continuing to work on those. So the next page I have there is the public feedback that has, it's just kind of a general nature. So I'm certainly able to speak to any of these if council wish, but it's for your information should you wish to comment.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Go ahead.
Thank you, through Mayor Lamb said you'll all be wishing I'd lose my voice.
No. Now's the time to ask
I'm
the
working
question.
on it. It's around the community improvement program. I know that Adele is not, I don't think Adele is with us.
Yes, she is.
Oh, she is.
Yes,
Oh,
she is.
terrific.
Yes.
Adele, and you get a chance to speak. I really question the need for having an outside consultant review that program. And I think we put a price tag of about $35,000 on that. We're talking about a program that over its lifetime, however long, we have spent or granted no more than $10,000. I don't think it's a complicated program. I think we can gain the same understanding of what barriers there are to businesses applying by talking to them. And I think our new Community Economic Development Officer could do that. I know that the members of the Economic Development Committee went out and did do some outreach on that. Most people were not even aware that the program existed, and that was the biggest barrier. So I really don't support the idea of using an outside consultant to review our community improvement program. I think that's something we could do internally. However, I would like to hear what staff thinks about that and provide us some input.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you and through you. I will ask Adele to speak to that, but also let you know that we have had discussions whether this part of the budget should actually be under other protection services. It's always been in the general government, but it might be better to move it to that section of the budget, just to let you know that as well. But yes, Adele can speak to the particulars on the review that's required.
Okay, go ahead, Adele, if you're there.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. The CIP program is 5 years plus that we've had the existing CIP. And actually this year we looked at sending out terms of reference for request for proposal. And we only had one planning firm that responded to that request for proposals. And they weren't really, I guess, qualified in terms of proceeding with undertaking the update to the CIP. I've worked with many CIPs over the years, and I feel the one that we have for the community of Buckhorn is not really a true CIP. And I don't know if that's why we haven't had much uptake. But I can tell you in the last month, I've received 2 calls from 2 businesses in Buckhorn that wanted the application form so they could apply for some funding. And if you had looked at the CIP in any great detail, it talks about more or less, I guess, the Coles Notes version is if anybody wants to do anything to their building, then they can apply. We're looking at any kind of improvements to the buildings because they are in such bad shape. But truly a CIP would put in place any kind of theme for, say, a downtown area where if there's some heritage components, you could look at facade improvements. So we were looking actually for a firm that would be able to take the existing CIP and enhance what we have and to make it truly a CIP. So we were looking at someone who had the ability to look at best practices in other municipalities. And I know from my experience, sometimes it takes a number of years before people will come forward and want to do any kind of improvements. And there's also maybe looking at expanding the CIP area and doing some work or allowing some funding in the Kinmount area as well. So that was always kind of my vision, what would happen with a CIP. So when we went out for the request for proposals, I had talked to a number of companies that I was familiar with and to see why they hadn't bid on that project. And I think that the money we had set aside was relatively low in order to do an update or a new CIP. We had 30,000 in the budget, and some of the firms wouldn't be bidding on it because they thought that price was too low. So we were looking at putting more money in the CIP for 2023 in order to do a proper update. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele. Any other questions? I see no other questions.
I just a
Councillor
comment.
Franzen, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't mind seeing the CIP program being expanded, especially Kinmouth area. I can think of a location that could use it right now, which would be the Canadian Legion that's in Kinmouth, that's within our municipality.
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah. Okay, thank you for your comment. Okay. Do we move on to the next item, or do we want to make a motion to approve? Yes, go ahead.
Maybe just a follow-up comment. I'm struggle with the idea of paying a consultant $40,000 or $50,000 where we could instead invest that money into the community improvement program and send it directly to the businesses, particularly since over the 5 years, and you would know the figure, Adele, we've only paid out, and they're matching grants, but we've only paid out $5,000 to $10,000. So I just think the money would be better spent going directly to the businesses and doing, some of that work internally.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it would be nice if we could do it with existing staff that we have in the municipality of Trent Lakes, but based on our planning applications and current workload that we have, these are sometimes projects that are well intended to do. However, we haven't had an opportunity to do any kind of work towards fulfilling that requirement. So it's just based on our existing workload, and there are projects that we'd like to get to. However, we just haven't been able to get to them over the last couple of years based on our workload.
Okay, thank you. Now, any other questions or comments? Seeing none. We can carry on to the next item on our agenda.
Thank you, and through you. So the next items are the work plans for myself and corporate services, and we're happy to answer any questions on these, if you have any. So seeing none there, I'll just continue.
A large amount of work, but yes.
It is,
Yeah,
yes,
go ahead,
thank
please
you.
continue.
So the summary documents showing the 2023 draft budget for the general government does show an increase of 74,901.55, and that largely is related to the administration portion of the budget, and that would be wage driven.
Okay. Any questions or comments of that summary? No? I'm seeing none. I think we can carry on.
Okay, thank you, and through you. So the next is the actual spending for our department. So I will ask Jesse if you want to speak to any portions of the budget that you budget, please.
Sure. Council budget stayed pretty much the same with the exception of the inclusion of money for a strat plan, which is coming forward in a report later on the agenda. The accountability officer budget has stayed the same. We do have a new integrity commissioner, but we anticipate that we won't have any reports, so we kept the budget the same. And there could potentially be a reduction in the amount set aside for the 2026 election, as it appears we were under budget for the 2022 election. So we could reduce our annual amount that we set aside to reserves for future elections for the next 4 years.
Okay, thank you very much. Just a comment on that. Many people have commented how easy it was to vote online this year. Thank you to all of your staff for that. That's great. Okay. Any questions or comments?
Just one comment.
Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
Yeah, I thought it was very efficient as well with the vote counting on the day of the election. We had the results within a couple hours. So I think the staff did a wonderful job.
Well, thank you. Okay, we can move on to our next item, I guess. Have no more questions? Yeah. Okay, I think Donna again, I guess.
So thank you and through you. So just a little bit about the general government budget. So we are budgeting to take 70,000 from service delivery money for that accessibility and strategic plan. There is a budget from reserves as well, 30,000 for the CIP and some Trail Town money that has been left over for the past couple of years that I did put in the budget again. So I don't think there's too much more there. So we are looking to put a tender out for cleaning services for 2023. So we are hoping to try to get some efficiencies and, you know, get the best cost for that because that's a fairly substantial amount of money. So we are looking still to reduce the cost for microage. You'll see those are in here. Trying to move to laptops from our current desktops, but making sure that's sufficiently done. And it's, you know, not a system being replaced that's only 2 years old. So we're making sure that we do that and continuing to look at doing that. I should make council aware that the library services for IT are included in this budget. It's we're working to move those costs to the library. They're quite substantial. So we are looking to do that eventually, but in the maintenance costs for IT services, their amount is included in there, and it has been happening that way for a little bit. And we have I've built in through all the budgets an increase of 15% for insurance. And that, once again, we're still in a hard market. We hope that it's supposed to come out of that hard market soon. So we're hopeful that that will be a lot less, but we want to make sure we're prepared for the monies for that. And we've talked about the CIP. We will speak in Dylan's budget. Some of the public feedback, according to the medical centers, is that they are treated differently, the Kinmount and the Buckhorn medical centers, and we did get some feedback on that. So we will speak maybe a bit more about that in his budget. The Kinmount agreement is up in 2025. And you will see there is an EDAC budget in here of $8,000, which we don't know if we can potentially reduce. So there needs to be some further discussions with that. That's the work of the committee. So they traditionally haven't spent that money. But of course, our budget always reflects spending from the previous year. So I do have that in here for now. So we can look to maybe reduce some costs there. And I have changed, I said new signage. There has been some approvals along the way to obtain some new signage for Buckhorn. So that amount in there that was Trail Town, I have added and funded that from reserve. So there's no tax impact on that. And I think we've talked to the rest of the items already. So.
Thank you, Donna. Anyone have any questions? I'm seeing no hands. Are we sure? Thank you very much. We can move on. Go ahead, Donna, once
Okay,
again.
so thank you and through you. So the next is a budget request paper for the conceptual drawings for an addition for this building, so the administration office. So as some council may recall, there were funds put aside. We were looking to remove the vault upstairs, and Cornerstone, when they did their facility review, identified some extra space in the office that was required, and that was felt to be accommodated through the removal of the vault. So we did put $50,000 in the budget in 2018 to do that, but we ended up not being able to complete because in order to do that, there's a lot of work involved in taking everything out of there and scanning it. And we also have determined that that's not going to give us enough space, quite frankly. So we continue to be very, very busy, and we're starting to double up staff and offices. So I'm hoping to add and our CBO has been kind enough to look at our space here, and it can be accommodated. An addition can be accommodated. So we're excited about that. So we're looking for council's support to have conceptual drawings prepared for this building. And there is an amount of $30,000 that we're thinking is enough for that. And that will be funded from reserve. We have the money that we had collected in 2018. And we would look, once that is done, we want to try to find some grant funding as much as possible for that addition because it would largely relate to accessibilities. We'd be looking to include a lift in there as well to make this building accessible.
Mhm. Okay, any questions on what we've heard so far? Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
Through you, Mayor, what kind of time frame were you thinking? Because of all of our other infrastructure projects, where would this fall in line with those infrastructure projects?
Great, thank you, and through you. So we'd be looking at getting the drawings done this year, and then we'll have to look at the time frame for sure. We could use this work soon, but we recognize there are other projects underway. So we would like to continue perhaps in 2024 and look at it, but we're realistic in that. If we have the drawings done, it just allows us to apply for grants. We have a shovel-ready project, so.
Yep.
That's very important. If you're not shovel-ready, then you're not getting the grant. So that's important to have them conceptual drawings. Go ahead, Councillor Braver.
Through you, Mayor. What would you expect the grant funding to come in at in your experience as far as the money amount?
Right. Thank you, and through you. I don't know if there's any set amount that sometimes it's a 50-50 split. Sometimes it's a 1/3, 1/3 if it's the federal and provincial governments and 1/3 for our portion as well. But they're really different. They're not always the same. But the one, for instance, we did in Galway, we did the siding was a 50-50 split for that project. So, which would be helpful for sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I'm seeing none. We can move on. Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Yes.
I'm wondering if we want a decision on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would we like to make a decision on that? I think we should. I think it's important.
I'd
Go ahead,
make a
Councillor.
motion to support the recommendation.
Councillor Franzen supports the recommendation. I have a seconder, Deputy Mayor Armstrong. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you, everyone, including our clerk. Okay, we can move on to the next item, which is Donna again, I'm assuming.
So thank you, and through you, it's actually Ann this time.
I see Ann. Okay. Ann, are you there?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead, RFP 08-2022 for facilitation and development of a strategic plan closed on November the 9th, and 11 proposals were received. One bid was disqualified and was not evaluated in accordance with the provisions of the RFP, and the 10 remaining bids were reviewed by the evaluation committee composed of the CEO, treasurer, director of corporate services clerk, and deputy clerk. It is staff's recommendation that RFP 08-2022 be awarded to the highest scoring firm, being McSweeney and Associates. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor
Go ahead.
Lambshead. Just a comment, McSweeney is the firm that was engaged to do the economic development strategy. And I think all of us saw the draft report that they presented. Personally, very pleased with the work and the process that they used. So I think it's an excellent choice to move ahead with them.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I see Councillor Franzen.
I would just like to take a 5-minute break.
Sure, can we just possibly get a
Well, when we
motion?
complete this.
Yeah, sure, okay. Once, anyone? prepared
And
to make a-
I'll make a motion to support that.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a seconder? I have Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. And now we have a request for a 5-minute break. So can we?
You're good.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. We've had our break. Now we're going to move on to 6.4 of our agenda, which is other protective services, and Barb Waldron, our Director of Building and Planning, CBO.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And through you, Mayor Lambshead. It's going to take me a little while with you too.
That's true. We have the same problem between ourselves, so it's constant.
Okay, so I'm going to start with the building department. The building department's unique in that it's a service department versus kind of going through certain cost items in the budget. So I do have some notes because I know there's some concerns out there. So if you just bear with me. So the building department is extremely busy department. We're right around the 300 permit mark for 2023. In addition to many thousands of permits open from previous years that we are still dealing with. We do live in the world of legislated timelines, and just for the new members as well as I guess everybody's, the legislative timelines, and I will start out by saying they come into effect when you have a complete application. Getting to the complete application is the problem, but the timelines are that you have 10 working days to issue a residential permit, or if it's a permit that's not residential, commercial, and institutional, you have 30 working days. Over the last 15 months, we've been working hard to catch up from the lack of a CBO in-house for a number of months, closing old files and dealing with new files. Our biggest issue is complete applications and trying to get complete applications. And once the applicant has been notified that the application is incomplete and missing information, it seems to take a while to get that information back from them. Obtaining the proper amount of staff is imperative to provide the required service level. So when I came to Trent Lakes, there was 4 major issues to be dealt with immediately. Oak Orchard, license of occupation, STRs, and the COVID backlog. And I will say that the Oak Orchard, we got a really nice compliment from the ministry. The ministry is using our municipality as this is how you fix the problem. They are very impressed with what we came up with. So I was really pleased to hear that. So they're kind of saying to all the rest of the province, look at Trent Lakes. So all of these 4 items consumed an immense amount of time trying to catch up on this work as well as old permits. So that's basically what we've been doing over the last 15 months is just playing catch up. So in the last 15 months, and you have to kind of live in the world to determine what the problem is to move forward to fix the problem. So the things that I've observed over the last 15 months is how the department had operated previous to me and the changes that needed to be made to move forward with improvements, the lack of staff. This department has a minimum, really, we need an in-house chief building official. We need 2 building officials to be outside doing inspections and assist with interior work. And we need a backup building official. So at all times, we need to have 2 bodies outside. The plan going forward is to go out to look for a new building official, and part of that building official work would be by law as well. Moving forward past 2023, as we start dealing with the short-term rental issue, we might be back into a position where we'd have to have a separate bylaw enforcement. Liability protection for the municipality is of high importance at all times. And we have to have the amount of staff to be able to make sure that we are keeping the municipality in a protected, liable state. Communication methods and information need to be improved upon, setting our expectations to the public. Permit cloud, issues with applicants not uploading proper information to the porthole, and illegal building is a big issue. So ways to improve our department is to have enough staff to do the job and to provide the service that the public requires. Balancing the permit fees with the service requirements. This is always a tricky situation. I'll allude to that later. Improving our communications. That's the big thing here. We have to make our communications better to the public. And we can do that through the handouts, the website, directions for better cloud uploads, very clear lists of what we determine to be a complete application. So that's basically just a checklist for everybody. And allows staff to put the required staff in place to work through 2023 and to continue to work on the backload of the work. In the bylaw world, we do have a number of bylaws that I have to review. It's of importance to me to get to that to council at the beginning of the year so that we can move forward with the phased approved approach by council for STRs. And I would like to look at the property standards bylaw to update it so that we can prevent municipality being drawn into neighbor disputes. Because that is a big time allotment as well. So most of what was on my work plan, I kind of alluded to there. The only other thing I wanted to talk about was the review of permit fees. Permit fees are, the ministry allows the municipality to set your permit fees to cover your costs, but there's always that balancing act. I'm a firm believer development should pay for development. That's the balancing act between having enough staff to provide the service and not getting your permit fees out of reach for people. So this is, you know, there's only so much money out there and we're aware of that. So that kind of dictates the staffing levels, and that's where lies the problem. Open building permits is another issue that liability-wise we have to get on top of. There's too many open building permits here. I'm working with legal on how far back we actually have to go to keep ourselves protected liability-wise. So there's just a couple things on the budget lines I did want to bring to your attention. The legal line was increased a little bit, and that's because we're always reaching out to legal, especially when we're dealing with so many illegal building situations out there. And we did add a separate line. We called it an OLT legal and planning line. And this was the result of one OLT last year between the planner and the legal cost $20,000. And I anticipate there could be another one coming up in 2023 for another matter. So that's what that new line is about. That's all I have to say about building. If there's any questions.
Anyone have any questions? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor Lamson. Barb, I wonder if you could just share with us your plans for bylaw enforcement. I know that we've hired somebody in-house who has a shared responsibility. I know we're not using Court the Guard. I see that in your 2023 initiatives, you're looking at hiring a contract one. So could you just tell us what you see as our bylaw enforcement approach, if I can use that word?
Are you looking under staffing changes and additions? Is that what you're looking at?
Well, what triggered it was under efficient and effective initiatives, there was a subtitle building department related, and the third one was hiring of a contract bylaw enforcement. So I was just trying to understand our overall approach to bylaw enforcement. So not the specific item, but what is our bylaw enforcement approach or strategy?
Well, our current bylaw officer is contract. The contract is up in June.
Oh.
That's what that's alluding to.
So it's not an additional one,
No.
It's renewal of the contract for the staff.
It's not really renewal, it's just the continuation of that contract money till June. So my intention is that when we go out for a new building official, and hopefully we can find somebody that can hit the ground running. Building officials are, as you know, few and far between to find that can hit the ground running. We have a lot of up and coming new building officials, but they require a lot of shadow work. And we are so busy, I'm really hoping I can kind of steal somebody that's qualified and can hit the ground running. But we'll have to see what comes in. You know, being up here is another it's pretty far up here. It's hard, you know, if you're not kind of living maybe Selwyn and the local area, it's really hard to draw people up here. So I'm really hoping that that goes well. But part of that position will be bylaw enforcement. And then if we require additional beyond that, we could be looking at like a Fourth of Guard situation again. I want to see how 2023 goes. Like, I want to get a second billing official out there. And then there's 3 of us that would be qualified to do bylaw enforcement. It would allow me to have a little bit more time to address issues inside with 2 people outside. The short-term rental, really how that's going to play out is going to dictate further down the road where we're going to go with bylaw enforcement. Council approved the phased plan, which we're still working through. And if we get to the point where council determines that a licensing program is the avenue that you wish to take, then that will require another bylaw enforcement officer. And as I say, it's about balancing the permit fee revenue and the permit fee costs and having the right people in the positions to do the job. And 2023, 2022, and part of 2021 since I got here has been like the learning curve. Seeing how things have been going, seeing what wasn't working, trying to fix some of the problems from the past. 2023 to me is, okay, let's get the people in place and let's get the communication better. We'll see how this year goes. 2024 is going to be, okay, we fixed this. This is where we need to improve. Maybe we need another person then.
Great, thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
Yeah, if we need somebody for STRs, what kind of qualifications would they need for?
For short-term rentals?
Yep.
Well, it's bylaw enforcement, basically. So you want to have somebody in place that is a people person, can bring down emotions in situations, knows when to call in extra enforcement through the police possibly if they need to. But more importantly, it's all about having the right bylaws in place and having, you know, we've been talking about this AMP thing as well. I think that AMP is an important part of the equation, is actually having an avenue to penalize people for not being respectful and not keeping their properties in a good state for STRs. It's basically just a bylaw enforcement officer, giving them personal tools, giving them the bylaws as tools, and giving them the support that they need. It's not like you need qualifications, but I would like to see that person take some courses through the Property Standards Association, because that association does provide a lot of courses that teach you how to handle people and different methods to enforce before you have to bring the police into things.
Thank you.
Any other questions? John Braybrook. Go ahead,
Through you,
Councillor
Mayor. Now, as far as, just for clarification for me, the current bylaw officer, is that one of the building officials? No?
No,
Okay.
no, he's just purely bylaw.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, if we can move on, I think. And it will be you again, Barb.
Okay, so we're going to move on to planning department, and I do have Adele on the line to possibly chime in where I need her. So again, planning is like a legislative world. We have certain timelines to adhere to, certain timelines for notices, getting applications out, and the new Bill 109 and Bill 23 have complicated our world a little bit more in that we have to be a little bit more particular about the information that comes in the door first round so that we can try to get the applicant to a complete application as soon as possible. So the big items that we would like to see accomplished during 2023 The first and foremost is processing applications. Just like building permits, we have timelines we have to adhere to. Planning applications come first. So when we receive applications, the clock starts ticking. We have to meet those timelines. And if other work has to get put aside to meet those timelines, that's the priority. Additional dwelling units. This is a very hot topic that people have been waiting for us to catch up on. Our official plan is currently with the ministry. We're waiting for the ministry to approve the official plan. Once we get that approval, we can start moving ahead with our own zoning cleanups. And we will be doing two things in conjunction at the same time. We will be starting the process to update our new bylaw, our new zoning bylaw. So we'll be engaging an outside source to assist us with that. But we are going to bring forward, ahead of the completing of that zoning bylaw, additional dwelling units, because that's an important component that people are waiting for. The planning application fees will be reviewed. Development should be paying for development, and that will help with the budget in 2024. The community improvement plan you already spoke to. The bylaws, I mentioned those as well, that I'm in the process of cleaning those up. Development charges study. Our current DC bylaw expires April 16th, 2024, which sounds like miles away, but it's not. So we have to make sure that we start the process in 2023, and there is money in the budget for that item. Cloud permit, we will be implementing the planning side of cloud permit. That's going to be, all of our staff is going to be trying to learn that as well as use it at the same time. So that's always a little bit challenging. The flood hazard mapping for Noby's Creek and Misquah ZB River area. I'm actually going to bring Adele into that to explain that, if you don't mind, Adele.
For sure, Barb. I think it's the next item on the agenda, but I could speak to it here. Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, we were successful in funding our request through MNRF for the flood hazard mapping, as Barb identified, and Kawartha Conservation Authority is taking a lead role in this project and will be assisting the municipality. So if you want to wait till the next topic, I'll go into how much money is being contributed through the funding and how much we will have to contribute as a municipality. The project is a 2-year project, so we're looking for funding and contribution for 2023 as well as 2024.
Okay, thank you.
And then the last item that we just have on our work plan, because our departments are all interlinked, really, is the Bessie Avenue North Road. And I know that you're going to talk about that as well, but that just links back to me for certain planning matters on that road, as well as permits, as was identified earlier. So if there's any questions?
Any member of council have a question? Seeing none. Thank you very much, Barb. We can move on to Adele, I believe, is our next item on the agenda. No? Sorry, my apologies. Barb, I missed 6.42. That's Barb again. My apologies.
Sorry, what was that?
I think it's you again. Additional building department staff, some requests here.
Oh, okay. Yes, the budget paper.
Get to the right page for you, sorry. My apologies.
The budget paper for the additional staff person, as I alluded to, that we do need an additional building inspector. Trent Lakes always had 3 people in their staff up until just a few years ago. And we're producing the same, if not a little bit more permits. And in addition to that, 3 other kind of components. Service expectations of the public have increased. Liability for the municipality has increased because it seems like more people don't think twice about coming after the municipality if they feel they've been wronged out there. So ensuring that you have enough staff to make sure the required inspections are done well is very important. And the code doesn't get simpler as we go. It just gets more and more complicated. We have 2024, March is supposed to be the new drop code. There is a ton of new code changes coming in. So trying to keep your staff educated in order to do proper inspections out there and be abreast of all the newest code things is so important. And that's so challenging to do when, like, for example, this just with Matt being outside, if I had to send Matt away for training, which he absolutely should be doing during the year, at least 2 times in my opinion, that puts me outside. That puts all my interior work at a standstill. So that this third person is of utmost importance to my department.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions about an extra staff member for building? Go ahead, Councillor Bray.
Through you, Mayor, it's just a comment. I mean, I agree 100% that the building department needs more staffing, and it's not fair to the building department as well as the residents and on the campaign trail. I mean, that's all we heard was issues with STRs and whatnot, and issues with the permits and how long they took and whatnot. So I think it's, I mean, it only makes sense to mitigate that with extra staff. It's only fair to, both sides.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions? I just have one little comment about the very same thing. I think it's very important that we help the building and planning department, because they are being overwhelmed with many permits and many backlogs and COVID backlogs and changing in legislations and requirements. So I think it's very important we support your department with another staff member. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, can we, anyone prepared to make a motion to support that? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Support the motion or support the request?
And Councillor Braybrook for a seconder to support the request of another staff member for building planning. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much. And now I think we can move on to Adele.
Thank you. And through Mayor Lambshead, every successful story we have in receiving the funding requires some municipal funds to be contributed equally for these projects. The total cost for the full project for each of these separate Nogies Creek and Misquazibi River, each project, the full amount is $136,500. And as I mentioned, it's over a 2-year period. So the municipal contribution for each of these projects would be estimated at $68,250 per year. And that would be ×2 for each of those projects. We're very pleased that the Kawartha Conservation Authority is taking the lead. They'll be doing the work, and we will be involved with them, but they're taking on the majority of the work. And this hazard mapping identification for these 2 areas is very important. We have a lot of individuals coming in to redevelop their properties, either putting additions on, and they're in a floodplain, and we have to say to them, well, you have to get a survey, you'll have to do a study, and this way at least we'll have the background information, and it'll cover a great portion of our municipality with these reconstruction projects that people are coming forward with. So not only will it benefit the municipality, but it'll benefit the public as well.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele. Anyone have any questions? Seeing no hands, I just have one comment that I think this is important because it'll help the building and planning department make some decisions on what things can go there and where they can go. So I think that's very important. Sometimes it's just left up to the individual department to make that decision, and it's difficult to do that. So I think the mapping will be an asset. Okay, anyone? Yes,
Is there a motion needed?
Yes, there is a motion needed.
I'll make the motion then to support staff's recommendation on the mapping.
Okay, I have a motion to support that, and I have a seconder in Councillor Cadigan. All in favor to support the motion? That motion has carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we can move on now to our next item on the agenda, which is fire rescue. Oh, no, no, we have an addition here, an amendment, my apologies, is Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Namsad. Building on what Councillor Braybook said earlier, many concerns were raised as we were campaigning about people's experience in dealing with the building and planning department. And this was a recurring theme throughout the campaign. We realized that many of their concerns are about things that are completely out of our control, including regulatory requirements, COVID restrictions, staffing shortages, and significant increases in demand for services as more people moved up here. However, believe that there may be opportunity in looking at the overall process to see if some improvements could be made. So the intent here is to help our staff by bringing in somebody who does a process review of all the steps in a building permit application or a planning application, and understand whether there are any opportunities to reduce the cycle time or the time it takes to do each step, to see if there are any duplications in there, to see if there are any efficiencies that could be driven, much like a Lean Six Sigma review for those that are similar with something like that. I brought this up 3 times in the previous term, and every time we had a new CBO, and it was completely unfair to impose this on a new CBO as they try to build, deal with the backlog and move forward and put their own stamp on the department. I'm hoping that we're at a stage where this could be done and would be helpful to the building and planning department. So requesting that we engage an outside consultant who is an expert in process review, again, Lean Six Sigma type of approach, to undertake that review with a cost of probably $35,000 to $45,000. Presume it could be done out of the service delivery reserve and not a direct taxpayer thing. Understand that this would impose additional time and work for the building department staff. And that, of course, is the downside of this. So to me, it's something that needs to be done. I think we all know that there are some opportunities and that we should take a look at it. I'm hoping that this is something that we could do this year without any major disruption of the department for a win-win for everybody, for the staff and for the public.
Okay, any comments from our CBO overall?
I don't think that this is the year to do this. And I know that's not what you want to hear. But the bottom line is I know what the issues are, and this person isn't going to tell me anything that I don't already know. The 2 big issues out in the public is that, and I'll be frank, there was a lot of permits issued with information that permits should never have been issued on, and I've raised the bar. And people are not happy about that. But I have raised the bar because that's what needs to be done. And that's what we need to protect ourselves if we land in court. And that's what my job is, to protect the municipality. So when I say raise the bar, I'll give you an example. I have a lot of people who think that spending money on plans is a waste of money. And it's not a waste of money. Having somebody that knows that building code put together a set of house plans for you saves you so much money at the end of the day. I've always had this rule as far as my career goes, is that yes, there is a loophole, and I'll use that word loophole because I don't like it, but there is a loophole in the code that says the homeowner can do their own plans. But I always say to the person, okay, here's the building code. If you think that you can navigate that book and put a set of plans together, you have one chance to do it, because we will not be your designer. I will not continuously take your plans back in and keep updating them and making comments so that you can go back and change them. That's not my job. So you have one shot at doing this. So I suggest that if you don't think that you can handle it, you need to go hire a designer. I issued a permit. I was here pretty late on Thursday night. and I was issuing permits to get them out the door. And there was this one permit, and it was only a 3,500 square foot house. It's not like it was a massive house compared to the dollar value that was on the permit, which was $2.6 million. Now, what made that value so high was how the building was being constructed. There was a Lego-lit floor system, and it would, it's quite expensive. So just for kicks, I figured out what percentage my permit fee was based on that value, and it was 0.37%. My permit fee for us to do our job and make sure that that building gets built safely is 0.37% of that person's value of their house. So that's one of the problems, is that I've raised the bar of what we will accept as documents to be for a complete application. The second thing, as I already mentioned, is getting the information. Couple things there. Cloud. I will go in and pull the plans up, and there'll be the plans. And then I'll go pull the building permit application up, and there's the plans. And then I go pull the HVAC plan, and there's the plans. Like they're not putting the right information in the right places, and they're not giving me the right information. So for us creating this is what a complete application is, this is how you do it, that's going to assist with that as well. And then the communication piece to me is huge. I'm used to being the building official in the house, issuing the permits, and out in the field, so everybody knows my face. But I'm inside issuing permits, and Matt's outside, so people don't know me directly. But I'm getting to know more people, and the more talks that I'm having with people, they're understanding why we need the things that we need. So to me, I can fix a lot of this. You just have to give me the time to do it. So I'm at least asking to give me this year to see if I can improve things, and I have confidence that I can.
If I may follow up.
Yes, go right ahead.
I respect that, and I'm fine with that. The only thing I would ask is, would it be appropriate, would you think it's a good idea to leave it in as a placeholder for the 2023 budget and determine once we get into October, November of this year, once the really busy season is over, whether it's something we should go ahead with? Because if we wait until next year, then we could only do it early in the year or late in the year, because we're certainly not going to have you do it in summer. I'm fine either deferring it until removing it, I guess, and bringing it back up for the 2024 budget, or leaving it in as a placeholder and we revisit it in the October, November timeframe.
I'm smiling because you said when the busy season is over.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a busy season anymore. I'm okay with that. I want you to, you made a really good point that bringing a person like that in requires our staff to spend a lot of time with them. And that time can be spent in better places. I don't mind leaving it as placeholder. I just don't want to be forced to do it.
Any other questions? I'm thinking of that should be a 2024 item rather than a 2023, just because our budget is getting quite robust here, and I'm concerned that we may not be able to support everything that we're supporting at the moment. So, yeah, go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you. This would not be a tax impact. Like this would never serve for the wage reserve. So it's not don't think we have an issue in terms of supporting it with funding from the reserves. However, as I said, I'm open to doing either. If we want to just move it to 2024, that's fine. Maybe that's the right thing to do. You've got it in the back of your head. I have it in the back of my head, and we can, and I guess the budget discussions will start in November, December next year anyway, so we can have that conversation. So let me withdraw it.
Okay.
Thank you for the discussion, and we absolutely have faith in you and support you, and hope that the additional staff member will give you the sort of resource capacity you need.
Thank you.
That's what we hope as well. Let's go ahead.
Perhaps it would be appropriate for Deputy Mayor Armstrong to direct staff to include this requested when they're drafting the 2024 budget.
Sure, if somebody else can, I can't put it in their tickler file and I don't have to. Thank you.
We need that as a motion. Yes, so that's a motion. Can I get a seconder? That will be Councillor Franzen. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much. Okay. Now we get to move on to Steve Brockbank, our Director of Emergency Services.
Thank you, Mayor Lambshead and Council. Before you, you have my fire rescue budget overview. I can go over it with you, or if you have any questions right off the get-go, I could answer them just the same.
Anyone have any questions before we start?
Or any explanations needed?
We're starting to feel overwhelmed with information here. If you maybe want to just hit some bullet points there.
Yeah, absolutely. So through you, Mayor. Building facilities upgrades, we won't go over those. We've spoke about that quite regularly today, as well as our road trip. Communications, moving forward, we have Next Gen 911 in here as well to work with Dylan's department, of course, but our end will be more on the dispatch and agreements on that end of it and how it will play out for our service in the end. And then we will support Dylan's department as well with anything that's needed. So information gathering and such, going to meetings and whatnot. For the new tanker, just shows some reductions hopefully in fuel and staffing and whatnot, because with one truck, it should almost give us as much water as we have in 2 stations. So that will keep all their stations hopefully in their areas more often and without like having trucks traveling the roads as frequently. The rescue vehicle for Station 2, we're looking at it'd be like a delivery type of vehicle. So an all-wheel drive or 4-wheel drive unit with rollout trays that will house our auto extrication equipment and such. And instead of replacing the mini pumper that needs to be supported by a tanker truck, as we go forward with our fire hall upgrades, we'll be hopefully putting another full service truck, so a tanker for better protection. And as the other departments have been speaking about increased demand from the public and such. So as of this morning, we're at 515 calls already, and it's only a week or 2 ago, we were in the 400 range when we met last. So just an instance, like on the weekend, 15, 20 calls in a 12-hour period. So we get more demand for that. The mandatory training and certification, we are looking at options to do as much as we can in-house to keep the costs down and keep firefighters in our area instead of sending them away. If we don't have to, we can do it in-house, and that's all pending our new hire with the training division being us, their individual, what's the words I'm looking for? Individual, yeah, person instead of a split role. They'll be able to focus more on that, on the training itself, and then prevention will be able to focus on prevention. As well as with the hiring of the new position, that will give Trent Lakes more coverage during the daytime hours as well. So there'd be a faster response out of stations. So the impacts and pressures, we are just slowly, hopefully recovering from COVID, the delays, and there is money that we haven't spent in this year's budget. Equipment's been ordered, but we're approximately 20 weeks just for bunker gear to be delivered. So that has been ordered. So there'd be approximately $17,000 coming out whenever it comes in another 3 months from now. I think that's the high notes. And then for my work plan as well, it's fairly self-explanatory. One of the bigger things is going to be, as we're completing our community risk assessment, we're going to take that into consideration and meet with council on a level of service review, hopefully, and put all that together with new standard operating guidelines and such to move forward. And the driver certification is a big one as well. They've changed the demand for classroom and training time. So that's approximately 60 hours per firefighter if you were to start fresh to get a DZ license. So all that good stuff is what is driving our budget up. I think that's all I have. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much. Any
Clarification.
questions? I see Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, the request for tender for the tanker, are you developing that request?
Sorry, through you, Mayor Lambshead, to Councillor Cadigan. It has already been ordered. The tanker was ordered last year. So instead of 365 days to get one now, it's 400 to 500 days. And they say March for delivery. I'll tell you better in March if that's accurate, but yeah, so this will be new to fleet, being a tanker for Trent Lakes, like a specified tanker, not a pumper tanker. So hopefully moving forward, if this truck is adequate for, we can just reproduce that truck in the future, hopefully. That answers your question.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. If I put on truly my financial hat, this year's budget is an increase of about 21% over last year. So the financial question would be, is that a one-time increase driven by the certification requirements that we have, some catch up in terms of equipment? And would we anticipate that it's a one-time thing and we won't see that flowing into the 2024 budget?
Through you, Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Armstrong, got that right this time. I would love to say that, yes, this is a one-time deal, but moving forward, if the certification stays, that'll be an ongoing. We'd spoke on our bus trip. We now have to spend all this money training staff. And what we're doing is we're training them to go anywhere and work they're certified to the NFPA standard. So if we pay this, or you're a volunteer and you get all your education, you can go to work for Toronto Fire and make $100-something thousand and work 7 days a month. That is quite an attraction for a firefighter. So I would love to say that it is a one-time deal, but I don't believe it is. I think it's just going to be an ongoing process, because we're paying, and we've taken 22 firefighters in the last 2 years, approximately 75,000 each year, and we might have 10 of them left, right? Because it's way more than what you really bargained for today, on top of the 515 calls type thing. So we do have catch up. We are realigning after COVID, and we do have a little bit of catch up, but it's the unknown in the staff time and hours and stuff like that, right? It's if we can get more in-house training done and whatnot, because we have certified instructors and whatnot, and work with the fire marshal's office, then we could keep the costs down for sure. But I just ultimately think that it's just going to be a reoccurring for the recruitment and retention portion for sure. And the trucks, they are on our 10-year rolling stock plan. So this tanker that is replayed, that'll be our oldest truck. So those costs will go down, but it's the other, like the auto extrication equipment and stuff like that to keep it current and whatnot, SCBAs, stuff like that. For example, in 2018, we bought all new SCBAs, and a mask for a firefighter was $375 approximately. Friday afternoon, I got prices back. The same mask is $600 and change. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay,
Kind of.
go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Lambshead. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I would like to say is that because of all of these changes and the additional requirements for training and staffing, et cetera, to support the new requirements, that you've comprehended it in this year's budget. And so going forward to next year, you've already established the need for that, and it's in your base, so that next year there would not be as big an increment as 21%.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Cadigan had a question?
Through you, Mayor Lambshead. is there any plan for retention? I know that some of the bigger departments have penalties if you leave within an allotted time. Is that something that we're entertaining?
Yes, so through you, Mayor, to Councillor Cadigan. Yes, we actually had a staff meeting last week, and we are trying to collaboratively work with other departments in the county as well. And I'd mentioned before, it's a population thing as well. So it's getting that out there to make it attractive to people. And then as for what you're saying is, it gets pretty sticky on, if you leave after 6 months, it's this. If it's a year, it's that. There is another department in our county that has a bylaw. So yes, we are entertaining that. I just don't know what that would look like yet. But of course, it would come to council for your support as well. So we're in the brainstorming portion of that because ultimately, a lot of people didn't think this was actually going to stick and whatnot, but it seems to have been passed and it's over. So we have to move on.
I think Councillor Braybrook had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Just in reference to the new training requirements, and as far as recouping some of the money and the fact that we are actually training people and we have no control over whether they leave or not to more lucrative positions and that sort of thing. Is there any thought, you may not be able to answer this, but is there any thought to addressing the province as far as recouping any monies? Because they're basically creating a scenario where, we're not able to retain and it's through a requirement. So is the municipality getting any compensation for that?
So through you, Mayor, it's Councillor Braybrook. There's a bit of a smirk in the background here, but we've tried diligently, and I'll say we collectively, but Mayor Lambshead and Councillor Franzen has been at the table with the minister, and we have asked that a couple times, and we'll be going on our third round for a delegation as well. As of today, absolutely nothing available. And they made that quite clear at the beginning, but we're not going to give up on that, but it's costing us approximately for a new firefighter to be completely certified. It's about $43,000 to $45,000.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? I'm seeing none. I think we can probably move on to our next item, which is Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor Lambshead. Through you, Mayor, to members of council. I'm just going to go over the road side of things, and once I get to the waste management side, Chelsea Carpenter, the supervisor of Waste Public Works Coordinator, she's going to step in and do some explanation. So just a brief overview of the road side, the Public Works side of things. We just to highlight a couple of things. Your typical standard road maintenance, so we're looking at snow clearing, snow plowing, material, sand and salt, gravel application, calcium, culvert replacement, fleet management, brushing, ditching, patching, all sort of your standard stuff that you would see in a public works budget. A couple things I'd like to highlight. Number one is the roads needs study. Speaking with Donna, this was something that was on when I initially had started here. However, I just wanted to get a more comfortable feel for the municipality to be able to properly not only complete the study, but actually look at it through a municipality's viewpoint. So now that I've spent a year now on the roads and stuff like that, I do have a better feeling of the municipality, what its needs are, and sort of how I can use the information that is gathered through a roads needs study to better serve the municipality. Specifically looking at 5, 10-year, 15-year plans. Specifically, one of the things that I want to start looking at is complete life cycle costs, especially when you look at some of your hot mix asphalt and your surface treatment roads, to determine if there's certain better ways to sort of manage those assets throughout their lifespan to sort of extend that lifespan. So you're not sort of just replacing every 8 years or standard practice like that. You can get closer to hopefully 10 to 15 years out of some of your roads, your surface treatment roads specifically. We are hoping as well, I'll speak to this in the next piece, is a summer engineering student. It's just a program. I think it's fantastic to get young people exposed to municipal work. It's how you create interest in the municipality, as well as create some retain of people who want to come here once they graduate, stuff like that. So if you have any questions specific to the public works side of things, whether it be the work plan or the operating budget itself, I'd ask you to ask it now. If not, then Chelsea's going to slide in your new waste.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? See Councillor Franzen. Go ahead.
Just one comment. I think that's a great idea if we can get young people involved in the municipality, and it may help in their succession planning.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? I'm seeing none. We can have Chelsea Carpenter, Supervisor of Waste and Public Works. Coordinator.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So just to highlight some of our 2023 initiatives. So we're going to have some ongoing promotion and education on our recycling and diversion programs. I do have a budget paper later on in the agenda that will bring forward for consideration some events that I hope to have take place next year. We'll continue to work in conjunction with the County of Peterborough with the offering of some seasonal recycling programs. A lot of this will be conditional on county initiatives, but I'm hoping that those are able to come forward again as they have in previous years. I'm going to continue to look for enhancements and initiatives for recycling and diversion programs, such as seasonal recycling programs as the bulky plastics, as that was very popular. And any other further opportunities for organic waste diversion initiatives that might come forward. There'll be a lot of work with the Blue Box transition. So there's a lot of unknowns at this time, but I do see a lot of work coming forward next year on the municipality's part. And we'll just be continuing to monitor legislation with waste and recycling and continuing to offer the events, as I mentioned, such as some mattress collection events and paper shredding events as well. So if council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any questions of Chelsea? I'm seeing no questions. I just one comment is when we had our county road tour, the city of Peterborough is trying to get a organics spot at the Bensford Road transfer station. So they're well into it now. They're really trying. It's going to be several acres, and they might be able to increase the amount of source separated organics that they can take. So that might be something we can look into.
Yep, definitely.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? I'm seeing none.
Maybe.
Oh, maybe we have one. Go ahead, Council or Deputy
It's with
Mayor.
regard to the general ledger. So is that, are we on that now, or I should wait?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I think, I don't know. It's on page 9, administrative and miscellaneous, where we've got labor, wages, and all of the benefits. It just, take it away. It's just a weird one where the wages went up 22,000, but the benefits went up 78,000. I just didn't understand. I guess it's a question to Donna. See where I'm looking? Sorry, it's 5580-9100. And you don't have to answer it now.
Right.
It just stood out at me as being really weird that the percentage increase on the benefits would be so much greater than the percentage increase in the wages.
So thank you, and through you. I will have a look at that again. That's an actual calculation, but I do believe that there's some additional things in that line that I have been traditionally included in there. So keep in mind that all of the benefits, so you'll see various, anything ending in 9100 is associated with wages throughout the budget, and it's not only specific to that one line item.
Right.
It's specific to all of the labor that's included in the budget. So it's an amount that's based on all of that, but I can have a look at that again for sure.
Thank you. And the second one through you, Mayor, under environmental services general, it's 5825-9713, our recycling and diversion programs. The actual for 2022 is 94,000. You're smiling against a budget of 2,500, and we're budgeting 20,000 for next year. So what was that?
The
So thank you and through you. So that is, part of that is for the food cycler program. So that's where those items or those invoices were charged to, and then that will be transferred through the whole service delivery, if I'm correct in that.
Thank you and through you. So that is partly service delivery and partly user paid, right? Because there was a charge for that. So that is in the revenue portion of the budget?
Yes.
As an offset.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, we can move on to our next request, which is Public Works.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor Lamshead, to members of council. Before you today is a budget request to add a public works engineering summer student. So the intent for this position they would work typically May 1st to September 1st, depending on where the month lands and stuff like that. The intention would be to have a university or college student. They would be working not only in the office with Chelsea, doing some filing, but also working out in the field, helping me with monitoring the capital works, and just getting them exposed to the municipal program. I myself, and a testament to municipal summer jobs, as that's how I was exposed to municipality. And I believe that's basically the only reason I'm in the position I am today, is that I was at a young age exposed, and just found that working for municipality is a great opportunity. It's been a blessing in my life. So yeah, so I just feel that it's a great opportunity, especially for young people, especially for an area such as this. You can sort of show that, hey, you know, there are things to do around here. You don't have to run to Toronto to get a good job. You can get a good job up here as well. And I think there's a great opportunity with the amount of seasonal residents as well, that you could expose that to some of their kids as well. So yeah, so it'd be a 4-month project contract, and would be hopefully getting it out early January, February sort of thing, to get it in there before their reading week. So hopefully you can do some interviews on reading week. Just knowing from my own experience, that's sort of ideal timing. So you can have somebody lined up for May 1st instead of trying to get somebody in April. Any questions? I'll sit here to answer.
Anyone have any questions? Councillor Braybrook.
To you, Mayor. How many, throughout the year, how many staff do you have on for Public Works that are actually doing the work?
So road specific guys sort of thing.
Yes.
I have 17 guys, plus I do have one seasonal guy as well.
And that's throughout the year?
Throughout the year, and then there's obviously the transfer station staff, and then there's Chelsea in the office as well, sort of thing.
Where do you find it's the busiest? In summertime when we have the influx of our seasonals? Or?
It's sort of the mix, because you get the sort of quiet times in the spring and the fall, but in the winter you're running crazy depending on what the weather's doing. And then I find in the summer as well, as you are responding to a lot of residents' complaints. And one of the things about this municipality is it's so large that, you know, it's not so easy just to pick off a couple. You kind of got to spread out your time and do it that way. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, any other comments? I can see Councillor Franzen, go ahead.
Yeah, Evan, what do you anticipate the cost of hiring a summer student?
Thank you, Councillor Franzen. Through you, Mayor Lamshead, to Councillor Franzen. Donna has very well done the estimate there, and it's $15,889.92. The one thing to note is, I know when I was a summer student, it was funded by the Canada Summer Student Program. They have made some changes to that, but we'll obviously be looking at those grants to see if we can get sort of some funding that way, as the government tries to push for summer, like student jobs sort of thing. So sometimes we can find some sort of funding that way.
I'd like to make a motion to support hiring a summer student.
Have a motion. We have a seconder. Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. All in favor? That motion is carried. I think that's an opportunity for a young person to get into this system. Thank you for that initiative. Thank you. Okay, we can move on to the next item on our agenda. And that is Evan Grieger, once again, Director of Public Works, for Bessie Avenue North final design.
Thank you, Mayor Lamshead. Through you, Mayor, to the members of council. Before you today is something you've already heard a piece from a resident as well. It's the Bessie Avenue North final design, construction design, and recommendation moving forward. So the recommendation before you today is that you receive the report for information. And the second recommendation is that council leaves the unassumed portion of Bessie Avenue as is, and all applicable legislation would apply accordingly. The thought process behind that second recommendation, hopefully that they would be able to do some more internal looking to see if there's any ways we can continue to somewhat approve some permits, keep things moving along there without investing $500,000 into bringing a road up to a municipal standard. It's just a note, just with the construction design. I know there's been some questioning on the extent of the design. This is a standard process, especially for a rural road. Some of these rural roads, especially old road allowances like that, they didn't have proper base completed. A proper base to a road is vital to the surface of the road, whether it be gravel or surface treatment. If you don't have a proper base, then you'll be constantly be fighting the surface of the road between rutting, potholes, as well as frost heaves, and just the ability to properly maintain it, drainage, as well as just, yeah, like I said, properly maintaining the road. Currently the road is very narrow past where the surface treated part ends. That's where the winter maintenance ends. There's no municipal maintenance part past that point. It is very narrow, so part of the cost is actually widening the road to accommodate, as there is going to be a industry at the end of this road. We want to ensure that if a tandem and a plow truck meet each other on this road, that there isn't sort of a dance on that road in the middle of a snowstorm. We can safely pass two vehicles on that road. That was a priority of mine. Obviously safety number one. And then as well as there's some slight changes to the grade of the road, as well as just to address safety. There is a really sharp knoll of a hill when you're coming out of the swamp part. So we wanted to address that. Just as this is a standard process, you'd want to make sure that if you're building a road, you want to do it properly, so you're not continually trying to fix it and piecemeal. You want to do it right the first time. That is the intent of the design. I know there's been some questions on whether the road needs to be completed to surface treatment, and we can definitely remove that. The cost of that is fairly negligible compared to the rest of the cost, as the majority of the cost is with the granulars, so the building of widening the road base, building up the proper road base, as well as there is some environmental concerns in there as well that was identified by KRCA, which is Kawartha Region Conservation Authority. So there are some legislation requirements that we do have to follow as we're working within a swamp area, so we wanted to make sure we follow the proper processes. So obviously there's other recommendations at the end of the report if we're looking for other options, and I am definitely here for an open conversation and any questions council may have.
Okay, does any member of council have a question? Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
Yeah, my only concern is that we've given a building permit, that we've frozen basically development on that lot. We've created a few lots on that road. I mean, none of these things are any fault on present staff, but mistakes that have been done in the past. And we have some sort of responsibility to the ratepayers that have properties on that road. And I also have a concern when we talk about fire department access. I mean, we have two industrial issues on that road. We have where there's the trucks, we have an agricultural facility that processes firewood. I mean, if there were to be an accident, more likely there'd be an accident in those two facilities than there would be in the household. And I was just wondering why the hydro seeding was in there, the $15,000 for hydro seeding.
Thank you, Councillor Franzen. Through you, Mayor Lamb, said to Councillor Franzen. Hydro seeding was another piece that can be easily removed. It was sort of during a construction process, it's a standard process just to try to clean things up. If you're going to do it, like I said, you try to do it all in one clean piece. Obviously, if you're going through the specifics of the cost estimate, there is a little bit of pieces here and there, but as you can see, the majority of the cost is the granular work, the road widening, building a proper base, and that's, as an engineer, I feel like that's sort of vital steps to ensure that you're going to get a proper roadway. However, as you mentioned, yes, the hydro seed is sort of one of those pieces that it's like a certain type of paint. You can definitely find some savings in those areas.
And through the mayor, especially if the expectations are that the people on that road are going to be paying for the majority of the project.
Yes, so through you, Mayor Lamb, to Council Friends, I know that's been discussed of who's paying the cost. As you can see in my different recommendations, I've sort of tried to lay it out in multiple different ways. That's why I was looking at my original recommendation is I feel like there may possibly be an opportunity to sort of make it work, with a lack of a better term. Because I think, and this is important, sorry, through you, Mayor, to council, just in general, I think this is important for everybody to sort of see and understand of when we get these requests, because a lot of people request for fire routes for us to take over fire routes and start maintaining fire routes. This is a 600-meter section of road. So if we start looking at taking over 30 kilometers of fire routes, like this is, it just blows right up. So it's important sort of to see, and this isn't, like I said, this isn't out of the ordinary. You need, if you're building a road, the base is very important, because if you never build a proper base, you just be, for the rest of the lifetime of that road, you would just be chasing it and trying to fix something that you can't really fix unless you get to the base, the root of the issue. So, yeah.
Any more questions? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead. I'm inclined to support your recommendation. I think we're in a very dangerous place if we start to assume this, particularly at municipal cost, because as you said, we've got 300 kilometers of unassumed roads in this municipality, and we start to show favoritism for one, then it's a very, very steep slope. The only thing that gives me pause is, do we need or can we have some sort of exception process to deal with the situation that we heard about this morning? Because I'm empathetic to the fact that they've inherited a situation because somebody made a mistake, and they can't proceed with some building. So if there were a way to accommodate that request, but still support your recommendation to leave it as is, I would, I think that's where my position would be going.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I think perhaps.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Armstrong, through you, Mayor Lambshead, to Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Unfortunately, I can't really comment on the ability to do any exceptions like that. That'd be something that would come from the Building and Planning Department. Still sitting back there. If she wants to come speak.
Yes, this is a very challenging situation. So the bottom line for me to issue a building permit, I have to meet the applicable law list in my Building Code Act. Probably the number one item on my applicable law list is zoning. So zoning is very clear that you have to have frontage on a maintained road. As you heard this morning, there was a permit that was issued in error, and I'm not going to repeat that. So I'm in a position where my hands are tied. I cannot issue permits. People like to throw the conditional building permit out a lot because they think it's an easy out. A conditional building permit is something that a building official should use in very extreme cases. And it's not just the permit, there's an agreement that goes with it. And basically, typically you would use I'll give you an example. I had a subdivision in Otonabee, South Monaghan, where because it bordered the city, we were waiting for the city to finish up on the servicing part of it because the sewage was going into the city. And we were getting into November, the weather was against us, but we knew it was coming. We knew that it was just a matter of getting the right name on the signature line. So we issued conditional building permits to get the footings in the ground to get them going. But a conditional building permit has to be registered on title, and there has to be an agreement entered into with council, and then it eventually has to come off of title if you ever get the house up. You never want to put yourself in a position where you issue a conditional building permit and you get a whole house out of the ground, and then you never finish Bessie Avenue, and we have the same situation that we had with the speaker this morning. So I don't have the ability to issue permits. I don't think it's a wise thing to do. And there's other issues on that road as well with regards to planning that we have to address as well.
Okay. Any other questions? I just have one comment about if they move their driveway for 50 feet out the road, then they could get a permit or whatever it is, because the existing road does go past the edge of their property in their view. I don't, I mean,
I wouldn't, sorry, through you, Mayor, to use, I believe that's a question once again for Barb. From what I saw, they had municipal road frontage. However, that's on her interpretation of the property, so.
And that's true. That is her interpretation. I've drove by there a couple of times and I'm not positive of that. But just, could you speak to that, Barb? Sorry, I don't mean to have musical chairs there, but it's got to be frustrating for the landowner when they do think they have some of their properties on municipal road.
Yeah, and I do have, I absolutely have empathy for this owner. I was going to take a look at this property to see, like, do they have any frontage? Do they have no frontage? The fact that there was a permit issued in error, I may have to reach out to legal and have a discussion. If there's a way I can issue a permit legally, I will absolutely do that. So I was going to go back and revisit the property and see if there's something that could assist with that.
Okay, well, that's a great start for them, I think. Thank you for that. Okay. Now, we need to figure out what we're going to do with the rest of it. Anyway, I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Go ahead.
I would propose the motion that we receive the report for information, and further that we leave the unassumed portion of Bessie Avenue North as is, and all applicable legislation and policies would apply accordingly.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. All in favor? That motion has carried. Give me about 15 minutes to get caught up here. Okay, there we go. Now we're back to Chelsea Carpenter, Supervisor of Waste and Public Works Coordinator.
Thank you, Mayor Lamshead, and through you. So I have a budget paper for council's consideration for the planning of a few recycling events for 2023. This is in line with our goals for enhancing waste diversion for residents. So a little bit of the background, the events will include one mattress collection event at the Bob Cajun Transfer Station, one mattress collection event at the Crystal Lake Transfer Station. And my thought behind that is every year the County of Peterborough does a mobile hazardous waste event, and they alternate between Cavendish and Crystal Lake. So my goal would be to offer a mattress collection event, as long as I have the proper approvals and the market permits, in the opposite location as the mobile event that the county offers. So this year, or sorry, in 2023, it will be in Cavendish. So my plan would be to have a mattress collection event in Crystal Lake in 2023, as well as a mattress collection event at the Buckhorn Transfer Station, and then a paper shredding event at the Buckhorn Transfer Station as well. And I am requesting for the monies associated with these events come from service delivery funds.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Is there any questions about that? Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Through you, Mayor, it's a comment. During my campaigning, they had a lot of compliments as far as the mattress collecting, so I just wanted to pass that on.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, they've been very well attended, which is why I wanted to bring an extra one this year, and any opportunities that we have to enhance our diversion is a win, so.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that gives another service to our ratepayers, and I think that's important to try to deal with mattresses rather than making someone drive all the way to Peterborough with a mattress. That's good. Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's a great program, but maybe we should put on the sign the cost. I heard comments that they didn't realize that there was a cost associated to disposing of the mattress.
Right, so through you, Mayor Lamshead. So the mobile signs that we use are to get the pertinent information on, and then we refer them to the website, but we do have a flyer that is posted on social media and our website, and that is also distributed that has all the information. But that's definitely something to consider, because I did receive that feedback from residents as well, that they assumed that no cost advertised on the mobile sign meant that it was free.
Yeah.
So thank you for that comment.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? I'm seeing none. Do we have a motion to? Okay, I have Deputy Mayor Armstrong with.
Motion to support the request.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Braybrook, all in favor? That motion is carried. Okay. Now, we can move on to 6.7 of our agenda, which is Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation and Facilities.
Great, thank you, Mayor Lamshead and Council. So we're going to get into my operating budget here, starting off with our budget overview. Some 2023 efficient, effective initiatives. We've got our fleet replacement, looking to gear the vehicle we're purchasing this year towards park cleanup and our watering function. So looking at more bed space and some inverter stuff and that. We've got Next Gen 911, which I'm going to have a budget request paper for later on. We have a budget paper for architectural and engineering pre-planning funds. So that'll be setting us up for future projects to be shovel ready for grants, etc. We've got our Odenang playground, hopefully coming next year. Still waiting on some archaeological findings. Same with the viewing platform, additional seating and lighting. As always, we're looking at our SOPs, our training. How can we train our staff to operate as efficient and effective and safe as possible? We're always looking towards scheduled maintenance contracts. So we've got our HVAC contractors on a regular contract, our water systems, our fire extinguishers, emergency lighting, generators. We have regular plumbers where, any opportunity to, when you need somebody in a pinch, you've got somebody who knows the building and you can get them in right away. And we've also kind of on the finish line of some booking software. We found a good candidate. We're working to get some kind of some demos set up with our community halls and see if it would fit their needs. Advantage of that being they can input their stuff into a centralized system in which they don't have to automatically forward to us for the HVAC their bookings. We can just log in once a week, see what they've got going on. We can make sure that we're not going to show up and do a bunch of maintenance on a day that they've got something like a wedding plan. We ran into that before. So just trying to increase our communication with these with the community centers.
Okay.
Next up, we've got our list of budget feedback. Here, lots for the Kinmount and District Health Center. Grant systems, we did receive one late submission about the grant system, and that the person with this feedback would like to see a more systematic approach to how grants are handed out. That feedback can be made available for council in writing at a later date. We've got recreational services listed in here. I'm not going to go through them all, but they are there for council's review. Moving on to my work plan. Got a lot of stuff on here. One thing that is not on here that it just occurred. Oh no, I do have it on there. Next Gen 911, so that is on there. And then as well as we're going to have all the projects that council just approved previously in the hall requests that'll all get added to that as well. Is there any questions before I get into the actual budget itself?
I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong has a question. Go ahead.
Thank you. More of a comment and maybe a motion. We got a number of comments about the different funding models for the two health centers. And I'm wondering if it would be appropriate to have staff bring forward a report to council on how each of them are funded and whether we believe that that is an appropriate discrepancy or whether there might be a way to look at funding them more on the same kind of model. So I guess that's a question to Donna to say, is that the right approach, or what should we do about this? Because I think it is a reasonable concern.
So thank you, and through you. So they are treated very differently. The one in Kinmount is an agreement that was entered into at the time, and it was independent doctors working on their own. So it was more of a hands-off type facility. and they were operating very independently. We own the building. We were doing more capital type work on the building and a few operating things. So when the Buckhorn one came along, it is part of the LIN, so we don't pay any of the wages for the doctors or the staff there, but we do for everything that happens in the building. So they are treated very differently. I would assume partly that's because they came at a different time, and one was, there was an agreement already in place for, but we can look to definitely speak to that in a report. We can bring something back.
Okay, that's reasonable. I think, I don't know if we need to make that a motion or not, but I see Councillor Braybrook with your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Because of the proximity of the Kinmount Health Center, is there any cost sharing between the Kawartha Lakes or the other municipality?
So thank you, and through you. There is not any cost sharing. I know that they're looking to join a health team, a family health team in City of Kawartha Lakes as well to share, because they are struggling with having only one doctor there. So there is no cost sharing for that.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
I think, sorry, who deferred to?
Go ahead.
Okay, I think I would like to go ahead and make a motion that we direct staff to research the funding for the two health centers and bring it back to council with any recommendations they may have going forward. Obviously, it won't be for this year's budget, but it would be for the future.
Can I get a second to that, and then we'll have your comments? I have Councillor Franzen seconding it, and you can have a question?
Yeah, it was more just information. My understanding is that the pharmacy that's in the lower level in Kinmount, the doctors receive the revenue from that.
Yes, thank you, and through you. That is correct, yes. And Dylan, do you have anything further you would like to add to that discussion? I know you've had some conversations with that board.
Through you, Mayor, not a whole lot. So the pharmacy is a sublet of the doctors who lease the building from us as a part of the doctors' part of their agreement, as they can only lease to medical professionals. So that is there. In discussions with the pharmacist, just in passing, is that should they not be able to replace the current doctor up there, they do want to continue to have a spot there. So when that time does come, I would think that council can expect a request to sublease that portion of the building to the pharmacy owner.
Okay.
Which could be a funding source for council to offset some of the costs of the building, should they wish.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other comments before we call for a vote? All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Now, Dylan, you can carry on.
Sure. So last up here, we've got a fairly modest increase to this year's budget. For our new councillors, big chunks of our budget being our park maintenance, administration, so labor and wages, IT, fuel, that kind of thing. Grants, the municipal grant program is a subsection of my budget. So, Carol in some of her earlier years would always ask, well, why have we spent so much of the budget right off the hop? So the grants do come out right at the bang off of the year here. And as well as the library levy is contained within my budget, which makes up about 25% of the budget. So we do see, January roll around budget approval, and 30% of our budget is already spent. So when numbers kind of look funny at those budget updates, that's why. As for anything else, we do have the community centers within our budget, the maintenance of those, and our fleet maintenance. If there's any questions on any particular lines, I'd be happy to try to answer those. Some pressure points definitely this year. Building fuel, vehicle fuel, definitely seeing some big increases. Until such time that we have card lock at our facilities, hopefully with our new 49 depot, we'll see that. We're going to just amalgamate all of our fuel It usually ends up being that in the end of the year anyways, and me just doing a bunch of paperwork to try to separate it out into separate budget lines. So that's kind of a bit of an internal efficiency that we're going to find for this year. So yeah, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. Anybody have any questions? I'm seeing no hands. I'm surprised and astounded pleasantly. Okay, we can move on. Oh, go ahead.
I've got a bunch of budget papers, I guess.
Yep.
Sorry, through you, Mayor, if I'm able to revisit the public comments as far in specifically related to the recreational services, the Trent Lakes Recreation Association. I know they've got over 200 members right now. And during my campaigning, there was an appetite from the residents to have more facilities for whether it be kids activities and seniors activities and whatnot. And I think it's important to acknowledge this recreation association. And I'll add, in speaking with constituents, I said, shared that the BCC and recognize the BCC is one of our main hubs and has been, and that if there were going to be any sort of additional activities that would be done in coordination with the BCC and not detract. Like if we are going to pursue other facilities or activities, that doesn't detract from each other, and they did it complements them. So I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, Dylan, I think we have a budget information paper from you.
Sure do. Thank you, Mayor Lambshead. Oh, just close my page. First one up is the Crystal Lake Dam boat launch. So we were approached by a resident whose property is adjacent to the dam at Crystal Lake. There's a small boat launch there. It does seem that there is some shoreline road allowance. Problem being with this one and with several other boat launches is we know we've got a shoreline road allowance, and it'll back onto Crown land or private land. There's a boat launch there. Figuring out where we actually own, what we need to actually be maintaining. So, for example, lake levels can change. What actually is dry land today and lake, and what is water may not be what it was when the shoreline road allowances were first established. So the adjacent landowner, would like to potentially transfer this parcel of land to the municipality. We've kind of been under the impression that the boat launch was, on shoreline road allowance, but not knowing exactly where if we own right up to where the travel portion of the Crystal Lake Road is or not. So these funds are to do a formal survey of that area, figure out if we have any stake in this boat launch and its maintenance to really understand that. And from there, council can make a decision to either, if we do own it, to continue to maintain as if we own it, in accordance with our recreation level service standard, or to, if it is owned by the adjacent property owner, to either accept the transfer from it, from that landowner, or to just say, we want to stay hands off on this boat launch. So we do have 2 other boat launches on this lake, which is Crystal Lake already. One of them, Canes Lane boat launch, is just down the road from this one. So, but that can be a discussion for later. So these funds are just to engage a surveyor, which this is pricing we've got from a surveyor. We've got a couple prices. One of them was closer to the $10,000 mark. So we're hoping to engage the less expensive one of the 2 we've heard from.
Okay, thank you very much. I see Councillor Franzen for a question.
Yeah, just that I would recommend this recommendation. It's a well-used boat launch, and I have talked to the property owner, and he's very anxious to have the municipality take it over.
Any other questions or comments? I'm seeing none.
I guess I'll make that a motion.
You make that a motion that we approve $6,500 for survey?
Yep.
I have a motion. Do we have a seconder? I see Councillor Cadigan. Any other comments? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Dylan, you can move on to your next budget.
Yep. Thank you, Mayor. Next one up is some consulting fees for engineers and architects. Basically to pre-plan, do conceptual drawings and give us some cost estimates ahead of the budget process, ahead of the grant application process for future projects. For, a candidate that's right at the top of my mind for this is the Cavendish Community Center, doing some conceptual drawings of accessibility renovations, functionality renovations, updating at that facility. We can get those numbers, we have those base drawings, and we can go, we can come to council with a plan, and we're ready with some estimates and some more accurate numbers for a grant application process, because there is, with regards to our department, there's a lot of funding out there right now for resilience and accessibility and service delivery. There's a lot of money out there, and to be able to effectively capitalize on that is we've got to be more shovel ready than getting in mid-February or March with budget approval and then trying to put everything together, within the budget year. It's just too tight timing. So this would be a reoccurring amount, fluctuation depending on the project, but we're hoping to include this in subsequent budget years as well, moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from, I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lamstead. Jill and I support doing this. The only thing I'm a little confused about is we already have $38,000 in the budget for consulting, which is an increase over last year's budget. Would that not already include this, or is that $38,000 for other studies?
Through you, Mayor, to Deputy Mayor Armstrong. That is the leftover amount to finish off our open spaces master plan.
Got it. So this is an incremental. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Anyone prepared to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
What would your motion be, Councillor Cadigan?
To approve the $10,000 for the project recreation facilities.
Okay, I have a motion. Anyone want to second that motion? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong, all in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much. Okay, we can move on to your next paper.
Thank you, Mayor. Next paper is in regards to Next Gen 911. So we had talks with the County of Peterborough. They are expecting the townships, townships to be able to conduct some of the field work required to bring the Next Gen 911 system into existence, which for us will entail mapping locations of homes, driveways, ensuring accurate addresses. I would say that we are in a better spot than most municipalities due to our previous addressing, but 100% accuracy is certainly not where we are yet. Next Gen 911 is it uses, the actual location of the call rather than landlines and street segments to kind of guide first responders to those locations. So we want to ensure we've got, the most accurate information possible. Preliminary talks look like the Next Gen 911 going live in 2025 or so. We are hoping to complete, I'm hoping 70 to 80% of our actual verifications digitally using the county aerials. Many homes and driveways we can see from the aerials, but when we get up into our fire routes, similar to we were on our road tour there, it's just all you can see is trees. So there will be a physical visit the location requirement for a good chunk of the municipality, which obviously takes time. So to offset this, we're not going to hire a a person to do this specifically. Myself, with my previous experience in the civic addressing, as well as the recreation coordinator, will be the front people on this endeavor. We're going to split it up into manageable sections, try to complete most of the online work when it's, snow-covered roads. We can't actually physically get to the sites. And then during the summer months, when we would be taken away doing the driving portion of this, the field visits, we will hire a 4-month seasonal laborer to assist our park staff with parks-related duties. And additionally, as I spoke to before, our half-ton pickup 001 is up for replacement this year. Ordinarily, we would trade in the outgoing vehicle, but in this case, I'm recommending that we retain it and use it for the field work associated with the next gen 911 stuff. So there is an additional approximately $4,000 associated with the maintenance of that vehicle during that time, and then the balance of the funds to go to labor, wages, WSIB, PPE, that related stuff for our 4-month seasonal.
Okay, thank you very much. Cool. Anybody have any questions? I just was wondering is this information going to be available for like building and planning to accurately get to a location, or the committee of adjustment people, or is this just 911 only?
So all of this information, Mayor, will be, it all is stored on the Peterborough County GIS. So certainly our building and planning staff have access to that. The public have access to the Peterborough County GIS. If they just Google Peterborough County GIS, a couple clicks and they'll be on where they need to be. The unfortunate part is getting third-party private companies such as Google Maps, MapQuest. I'm sure you guys have heard it if you've been around for a while, that they're not always up to date. Trying to get them to take our data is kind of painful. The county has seemed to take a little bit more of a lead in the last year or so. They've, kind of put it out there that they're, willing to look at it a little bit more to try to get these private companies to, engage in that. So we are trying to defer things that way as well. But when you're dealing with $1 trillion company and we're just little Trent Lakes, it takes time.
Oh, I do agree. Google still thinks I live in Curve Lake, or not Curve Lake, Lakehurst. So it's interesting. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? I'm seeing none. Anyone prepared to make a motion of some form? Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you. Mayor Lamb said, yes, I will make a motion to approve the request for $24,000 to be invested in the civic addressing next gen 911 project.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? See Councillor Braybrook. All in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, thank you very much. Now we move on to your report.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. My last request here today is a follow-up to the resolution 2022-550 to bring back a report regarding the Lakehurst Hall air conditioner. Council did see it on their road tour. So this request is recommending that we do go ahead and move it. We have gotten pricing for that, so that cost is pretty accurate there. I would recommend doing this in the springtime. There's other mitigation measures that we could try, putting a fence around it, putting blankets over it, but ultimately in the end, there's no guarantee to how much that's going to solve the problem. If we physically move the condenser around the corner of the building, we've taken a big, chunk out of that sound by, deviating the path of the sound, as well as we still have the option for fencing and a blanket to go over top. So it'd be my recommendation to just rip off the Band-Aid on this issue and get her moved.
Okay, thank you very much. I see Councillor Franzen.
Yeah, I would support that motion to move the air conditioning unit at a cost of $3,500.
For making that a motion. Okay, thank you. Do I have a second? Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. All in favor of that motion is carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, I don't even know where I am anymore.
Almost done.
I think we're getting close. Donna, I think it's up to you now. CAO/treasurer.
Yes, thank you, and through you. This is just the revenue portion of the budget, and it's at the back of the book, just in its entirety. It is spread out, as I said, throughout the individual budgets, but I kind of alluded to a few things earlier in this, so if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Does anyone have any questions? I see Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, the OPP, I see police services have a reserve fund. I'm wondering what that is for.
Thank you, and through you. Those are funds that have been there for quite some time. So it's not something we actively increase, but they're there if we ever were to have a really unfortunate event in the municipality, we would be able to draw on those because we would pay extra for the services of the OPP should that happen.
Wages and overtime.
Yeah, so through you, the OPP billing is in two parts. The one is the base service, which is just our how much we pay based on everybody in Ontario for the base service. But then there's the call for service component of our billing as well. And that call for service directly relates to the number of calls we have. So should there be a major, like if there was, some kind of death or murder, something like that, any of the OPP overtime associated with that would be billed to us directly. So that's just some money there to go towards that, should that be required.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? I'm giving Deputy Mayor Armstrong another minute here.
I'm trying to come up with another question.
Any comments?
I guess one comment, I would say congratulations for getting so much interest out of the bank. $190 or $185,000 is like kudos to you for however we're investing our monies.
So thank you. And through you, actually, I can add to that. I had some good conversations with the bank on Friday. So our current rate is prime less 1.65%, which is good. During the pandemic, the bank was actually losing money on the municipality because there was a set amount that they had to pay us. So that was a good thing for the municipality. But we are able, for the first time, there's a GIC available that is a short-term GIC that we're able to get prime less 1.40. So we're looking to put some money in that as well. And it could make about $2,500 a month more based on that change. So, and the money is liquid. We can get it out anytime after 30 days. So that's an important thing too. So yeah, we're always looking to try to improve that revenue for sure.
Thank you for looking into this. That sounds wonderful. Any other questions or comments? So I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yes, this is a question I was searching for. Thank you, Mayor Lamson. I guess the only question I would ask is to minimize the amount of the tax increase. Do you think there are any other reserves from which we could or should be drawing monies to support the 2023 budget?
So thank you, and through you. So you'll see the from reserve, we're already about 7 million in this budget, so it is quite substantial. I do foresee the ability to maybe find some extra revenue. I'm hoping the OSIP grant comes forward. It was supposed to be by the end of November that we knew that amount, but I mean, I can always look at that, but I do feel like we're already on the heavy side this year in that.
Fair enough.
And I do believe that our levy increase is doable. But yes, we'll always look, and we'll be able to reduce a few costs. I already know today that strategic planning exercise is going to come in a little less than, we have 40,000 in the budget at this time, so we can reduce that a bit. We'll go through again and do our best, but I wouldn't think we should rely too much more on that source of revenue.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think we know that you all look at grants wherever they're available, and I think we have to continue to do that because you never know what's available. Thank you very much. Any other questions? I'm seeing none. We can move on to item number 7 of our agenda, which is the adoption of the confirming bylaw. Anyone prepared to make a motion? I see Councillor Franzen,
I'll make that motion.
and I need a seconder. I see Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. All in favor? That motion has carried. And our next meeting will be Thursday, January 26th, starting at 9 a.m. Everybody ready for that? That'll be our final budget, or is that going to be another draft?
So thank you and through you. We would anticipate we will be able to provide you with a good update at that time. We typically pass in February, so that will be another draft, but it will also be an opportunity. The library will be coming that day to let you know about their budget and the grant application. So those are due in case any of the community organizations, if you've heard from any of them, they're due the second Friday in January. So those applications are out. But yes, you will get another draft and we'll make any changes from today and any additional changes we feel are required in the meantime, but we'll highlight those for you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I just want to compliment staff on all the information that they managed to gather up for us. And I think it's a huge amount of information for everyone. And I thank you very much. I think we can move on to item number 9, which is the adjournment. Anyone like to make a motion to adjourn? I see Councillor Franzen immediately. Councillor Cadigan, second the motion. All in favor? We are adjourned. The motion carried.